Good evening. I'd like to call to order County Council's meeting for Wednesday, January 20th, 2021. If you'll please rise, we'll pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As in past meetings, we will accept public comment both at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting. Public comment at the beginning of the meeting is reserved for those items that are on the agenda, and public comment at the end of the meeting is reserved for anything that you'd like it to be. Public comment can be sent to us by email by sending an email to publiccomment@co.delaware.pa.us. You can also phone it in at 610-891-4931, and it will be read into the record. We would ask that you list your name and your address so that your comment can be read into the record. And at this time, I will look to Mr. Martin or Ms. Ruther for a reading of any public comments that might exist for any item that is on the agenda tonight.
Chairman, there's one public comment relating to an agenda item. It is from Kelly Diaz, 1119 Morton Avenue, Folsom, PA 19033. It relates to agenda item number 6. I'd like to voice my support for the continuation of the residency requirement for county employees. I understand this part of the county code may be or should be modified to clarify the requirement and to ensure the county can attract and retain a competent workforce. However, I believe the residency requirement should remain applicable to the majority of county employees, especially those employed at the highest level positions of county government. Department directors and other leaders in similar positions are entrusted to help craft policies affecting Delaware County residents. Requiring high-ranking employees to themselves be residents of Delaware County ensures they have a stake in county operations because they experience and are cognizant of the effects of policy changes they help generate. That is the only public comment on an agenda item.
All right, thank you. We'll then turn to Dr. Taylor for the, before I do that, before I get yelled at, we did have an executive session prior to the meeting tonight where we talked about some matters pertaining to litigation.
And real estate?
Oh, and real estate issues as well. I'm sorry, and real estate issues.
And
so
Brian, we also had an executive session regarding personnel on Thursday, the 14th.
Okay, so noted. I thought I was going to make out of this without getting yelled at, and then I didn't. I got halfway there. Sorry about that. We will look to Dr. Taylor then for the reading of the agenda items.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4, motion for approval of minutes of the regular meeting of January 6th, 2021.
Second.
Anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 4, we're going to have a COVID and vaccination update.
Hi, good evening, Council. This is Rosemary Holt, and I am the Director of the COVID Task Force for Delaware County, and I'm going to begin the update today. We know information about the vaccine phases and supply have been shifting and at times confusing. Delaware County is following the CDC and the Pennsylvania Department of Health on the vaccination distribution and phases. Pennsylvania Department of Health is in charge of the vaccine orders for all counties in Pennsylvania except for Philadelphia. I will say this several times tonight, but vaccine supply is extremely limited. Delaware County, with the guidance from Chester County Health Department, is updating Phase 1A group that is expanded to include those 65 and older and those 16 to 64 with underlying medical conditions as directed by the Pennsylvania Department of Health. This has significantly increased this group to exceed over 30% of the Delaware County population. Originally, before this change, we were at about 16% of the population. And as of today, I just want to give a little data update. As of today, Delaware County, through all vaccine providers in the county, administered 605 partial doses, so that means the first dose of vaccine, and 2,788 full doses of the vaccine or the second dose, which completes that vaccination course. Pennsylvania has 354,728 partial doses completed and 81,009 complete doses. Important to note in these numbers, it reflects where individuals live and not necessarily where they got the vaccine. The most recent 7-day percent positivity is 9.9%, and it is showing a downward trend for the county, really for the first time since Thanksgiving. And the most 7-day incident rate, the 252.3 per 100,000, is also showing a downward trend. However, we have seen an uptick of COVID hospitalizations from 149.1 to 197.9 over the last 7 days. I want to just talk a little bit about our vaccination plan. The county has a robust vaccination plan. It includes 4 permanent vaccination locations in the county and plans for mass vaccination sites if vaccines become more readily available. The current locations that are operational this week and next week will be in Aston and Yeadon. However, these locations are by appointment only. Delaware County is cooperating with our other vaccine providers in the county, including our health systems, to ensure equitable distribution of vaccine. Long-term care facilities are being coordinated at the state level through federal pharmacy vaccination program. Other congregate care facilities not covered by this program can outreach to the state on its website to find out other approved vaccine providers for these facilities. And the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services is also sending communication to facilities not covered under the Pennsylvania Department of Health. I basically want to say we are prepared for the vaccine. We are just waiting for it. And I just, at this time, also wanted to go over some common questions that we have received. The most common one is really hearing right now is when is it my turn for the vaccine? So we encourage you to check the Delaware County website, as well as the Chester County Health Department website, which will contain the latest information on the phases and how to fill out the interest survey for your phase. This will be used to notify you when you have the vaccine available, and then you can schedule an appointment. The Pennsylvania Department of Health also has a map of other county providers, but I must caution you that, again, with the recent announcement, these providers have been inundated and overwhelmed, and several providers' systems, phone systems and computer systems have crashed as a result. Frankly, there is just such a limited supply of vaccine that it could be several weeks to months before you could get an appointment. So we ask you to be patient. To increase communication, Delaware County will be opening a call center next week that can help to answer questions and assist those without access to a computer to get on the list for future appointments for the vaccine. Our aging and vulnerable populations are a special concern, and we have been working with the community partners to ensure that reaching these special populations. And we have strike teams available to vaccinate where necessary. Once again, our message is to be patient as we try to respond to the limited vaccine and shifting landscape of the COVID epidemic. And at this time, I would like to introduce Dr. O. Mahoney, the new county interim health advisor, to explain more about the vaccine.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Rosemary. I'm really honored to join the Delaware County's evolving health department as the interim physician advisor. The county has been allocated the Moderna vaccine. This vaccine is for age 18 and over and requires 2 doses, 28 days apart. Our area hospitals are primarily using the Pfizer vaccine. Clinical trials have demonstrated these vaccines to be safe and effective, and we continue to remind the community that the vaccine is just one tool in the effort to limit the virus burden. We reinforce the importance of masks, social distancing, hand washing, and certainly avoiding large gatherings. And this is so important as we remain patient for the vaccine to become available. The goal is really to vaccinate, as Rosemary said, in a phased approach that captures high risk and vulnerable populations and to do this equitably with transparency and really inspire public confidence. And we can take questions if you have them. There's certainly so much to discuss, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
Just briefly, I mean, what I sort of hear and understand as the where we are is that the real bottleneck for residents of Delaware County to get vaccinated is the supply that we receive. And what I also understand is that our goal is to keep it that way. And I don't mean that in the sense that we don't want more supply, but what I mean is that we want to make sure that our ability to vaccinate is going to keep up with whatever extra supply that we receive. That we always want to be at the point in our ability to vaccinate in Delaware County such that we aren't holding things up. That the only limiting factor is really going to be that supply. And it sounds like we have a robust plan for that over the next month or so as we expand these vaccination sites run by the county.
Yes, and I think with we estimate with 4 vaccination sites operating 5 days a week, we would be able to maintain a volume of 10,000 vaccinations a week, just for done by the county. Now, if we need to expand that, we do have that ability. And I know Laurie Devlin from Intercommunity Health and our partners at Department of Emergency Services, all of the team have been working really hard at those plans and making them operational. So I have every confidence that we can respond to any increased volume that is.
And I think it's also important for the public to know that we are doing our very best directly, and the Chester County Health Department is as well, to advocate to ensure that we get our share. And thus far, for folks to look at the county by county numbers at the Pennsylvania Department of Health site, they'll see that we are, not getting any less than counties of our size. We're essentially in line. We're all sort of disappointed. We all would like to see more folks getting vaccinated, but we're not, there aren't any less Delaware County residents getting vaccinated than our neighboring counties.
That's correct. Yeah.
Can I pass along a question that I have gotten from many people today in light of yesterday's order? If someone has already, who thought they were in B, has already sent in their survey registration form, with the change, do they need to send in another?
So if they registered on the Chester County Health Department website through the Phase 1B, they do not need to register again. We will be receiving all that information, and then we're most likely, even if they were 1B, a lot of 1B moved to 1A with the shift in the phases. So we recognize that, and we have that information, and they don't need to register. And actually, we're asking people, once you register, please don't register every day after that, because it makes our job a lot harder, and we have to go through and take those people out multiple times. So just the one time. And we are, Chester County, I do want to note, Chester County Health Department, because of the changes in the 1A, had to take down that survey that was on there. They are going to be reposting it soon. So I just encourage you to be patient. And we are looking at another system in order to make this whole process a little easier for everyone, that will give you, a response saying that your information was received, because I think a lot of people feel nervous that they didn't get anything in reply. So we recognize that.
Thank you for all of your help on this. I just had a quick question, just one that we are getting a lot, and I've been answering it, but I just figured you could answer it on this meeting. Is what is the difference, if there is one, between a registration and a survey, in our survey, or is it the same thing?
It's the same thing. So I think different counties, I think people heard like Philadelphia and Montgomery County and Bucks were all like registering people for vaccine. We just happen to call it a survey, but it's the same thing. It's just everybody right now is just taking people's basic names and contact information so that when appointments open up, we can notify them. And that's what all the counties are doing.
Rosemary, for what it's worth, I would advocate that we use registration when it goes back up, because I think it does create a lot of confusion. I think the average Joe is far less inclined to participate in a survey and far more inclined to participate in a registration for a vaccine. So I think the terminology is probably better.
Yep.
So I had a couple of questions or comments. So number one, appreciate all the hard work you're putting in, Rosemary and Dr. O'Mahony and Ms. Devlin and everybody in your teams. I know it's been a tough slog here, and trust that you guys are going to keep doing everything you can to make sure that we're getting as much vaccine to Delaware County residents as we possibly can. I just want to reinforce what's been said previously. I think it probably can't be said enough, in that the reason that more people in Delaware County aren't getting vaccinated is because there is not enough vaccine for us to get out to folks. It's not that we're not ready to give it out. It's not that others aren't ready to give it out. Providers, hospitals, pharmacies, we're all ready. There just isn't enough vaccine, and hopefully that will be resolved in short order, hopefully, and we'll be able to do more. But until then, there's not really much we can do other than jump up and down and try to get more vaccine. There was a bit of confusion, I know, on council, and I imagine for others in Delaware County, as to what happened when we had this plan. There were certain people in 1A. It was going to be providers. It was going to be the medical community. It was going to be seniors living in congregate care settings. And then in 1B, we had this other set that included teachers and included first responders. And then everything got turned upside down. And there is some, I think, frustration in folks saying, wait a minute, I'm a 60-year-old teacher, and I thought I was on the verge of that I was going to get vaccinated. And now a 30-year-old who is a smoker is given priority over me. How does that make sense? It's my understanding that the decisions on who's in 1A, who's in 1B, those are not ones that the Chester County Health Department made, or that Delaware County made, or that we have any influence over, but that those were made from the Pennsylvania Department of Health, which I think is consistent with the guidance that came down from the CDC and the federal government. Have I got that right, Ms. Hall?
Yes, and in fact, the Pennsylvania Department of Health reiterated today that they will be consistently following CDC guidance, and that is built into their pandemic vaccine plan. So we are obligated to follow their guidance.
Okay, so we don't, I don't mean to offend 30-year-old smokers. I realize I just lost their vote, but I just wanted to. I can appreciate the frustrations that people feel, and know that we feel them as well. We feel we are as powerless as others are with regard to this. I appreciate that, and for those who are within the 1A population, is there any control that either the Chester County Health Department has or the state has as to who goes first? Do 85-year-olds go before 65-year-olds? Is there any sort of prioritization that one might expect to see?
So the county with health departments have officially asked the state for that clarification. And is there a priority list within 1A? And so we're waiting for additional information, and we hope, however, Chester County Health Department has given guidance that those who have already, the healthcare providers, those who are in the original list of 1A who have already been started, they're already all on our list. We're to continue to work through the existing list and then start to add in the additional 1As, if that makes sense. So if they were already filled out our survey or registration form or whatever you want to call it, if they're already on there as an original 1A, they will remain on there, and that is, we're going to be doing it by the date of that registration.
Okay, but the date of the registration is only important for those people who previously were in 1A and now may have gone back to 1B, or who are still in 1A. You're going to prioritize those folks over new 1A folks. Do I have that right?
Yep. You
Okay.
said it better than I did. Yep.
Okay. And is it helpful for people to fill out a survey or register every single day?
No, we do not want you to do that. Just fill it out the one time. We will be having additional information. As I said, Chester County had to take that survey or registration form down to redo it based on the new guidance. And so just do it the one time. We will have additional communication next week also about our call center. So that will be another way. And we will have additional information on the Delaware County website for the other vaccine providers in the area. I also just want to, because I know the hospitals have been getting inundated, please keep in mind that while you are maybe in 1A, the hospitals only get a very limited supply of vaccine, and they are only charged with doing additional 10% of their unaffiliated healthcare workers and other people in 1A. So there is just very limited vaccine, and the hospitals, I know some of the hospitals' phone systems were just inundated. And so, we're just asking you to be patient. Information will be forthcoming, but the current vaccine providers in Delaware County, just can't meet the demand of 30% of our population getting vaccinated right now.
Thank you, Ms. Halt. And I know it was said during yesterday's agenda meeting, I don't know if it was said tonight, but we intend to have this this feature as a recurring theme for each one of our meetings going forward over the foreseeable future on county council meetings. So we'll start off the beginnings of our meetings with an update on the vaccination schedule, if that's okay with you, Ms. Halt, Ms. Devlin, and Dr. O'Mahony. We'll keep the information flowing as best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
To agenda item number 7, we will have a first reading of an ordinance 2021-1, amending section 6-20G of the Administrative Code regarding residency of county employees.
Thank you. My expectation would be that we would ask Mr. Martin to read the title of the ordinance and then provide a summary of the ordinance. If that meets with your approval, Mr. Martin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ordinance number 2021-1, an ordinance of the County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending section 6-20G1 of the Administrative Code regarding residency of county employees. Whereas the section of the code indicated requires county employees to be residents of the county, and whereas that provision in certain circumstances has restricted the county's ability to attract sufficient qualified employees, and a more flexible provision will improve the quality of personnel employed by the county. And whereas that section is not applicable to those subset of employees covered by the civil service system, it is proposed that the code be amended to provide in summary as follows. The notwithstanding that an employee who is hired is not a resident of the county, such person shall be eligible to be employed, but shall establish residency within 3 months of the start date. And that the executive director, based on the recommendation of the director of personnel, may extend such 3-month period as required to maintain a qualified workforce, or when a good faith effort by the employee is demonstrated to establish residency within the 3-month period. Those 3-month extensions shall not exceed an aggregate of 12 months without the approval of council, and an aggregate of 24 months even with such approval. A second subsection here relates not to individual employees, but to classes of employees, and provides that the council may exempt certain categories or classifications of personnel from this requirement by adoption of an ordinance if they find that an exemption is necessary to allow the county to hire a sufficient number of qualified employees. Such exemption would expire in 24 months unless further extended by action of council. The ordinance continues to provide that these changes would apply to any current county employee who is not currently in compliance on the date of the ordinance with the current requirements of 6-20G1A, and that they may establish their residency within the 3-month period, and that this amended ordinance would not be applicable to those employees who are covered by the Commonwealth Merit or Civil Service System. The ordinance would take effect on the 10th day after its adoption. And that is the summary.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Any questions or comments from council?
Yeah, so yesterday we established that this is not in our charter. This is in the administrative code only. So this residency require is really a decision of council whether it's a good idea or not. And yesterday I asked that we all take a moment and give some thoughtful analysis as to whether the underlying idea of having a residency requirement for our workforce is a good one, and what the pros and cons are. Since then, I have indeed received some feedback from all sorts of people about the pros and cons of having a residency requirement. I have learned or confirmed that all of our Collier County colleagues, Bucks, Chester, Montgomery, do not have a residency requirement. Philadelphia does. And I would like to submit that I do not think we should have a residency requirement. I have sort of really thought through the pros and the cons that have been presented to me. The pros being, one being financial, keeping the business in DELCO, keeping people living here, paying property taxes here. To me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because our tax system is based on land, not on people. We don't have earned income here in the county, and there are very few municipalities that do. So that tax income is coming to us whether it's somebody who works in the county or not. There is something to be said for people spending their disposable income in Delaware County, but if you're working in Delaware County and living across the border, you're still spending disposable income in Delaware County. And I think that the difference there is pretty negligible, whether you might shop in the Giant on your way home from work, or you might shop in the Giant next to your house, either way. The other reasons for the residency required that have been voiced to me are, keeping people who know DELCO, who are familiar with DELCO and they know it. We want people who represent our interests, who understand our interests. Totally get that. If that is the goal, then I think we make a hiring preference to people who know DELCO. Someone could be born and raised in DELCO and have a week ago moved across the border when they got married. Now they can't work in DELCO. They know it better than anyone else. So to me, the residency required does not equate knowing DELCO, which is, I think, a laudable goal. So with those things in mind, and of course, on the other side, the cons are, we have heard over time from many different departments that this residency requirement does restrict the pool of people that will apply. And sometimes people have applied and then turned down the job because they have to move and they've decided they don't want to move. And I don't think it's worth sacrificing the top quality talent out there for this residency requirement, which in my mind doesn't bring great pros. So with that in mind, I have two options I would like my council members to consider. One would be to just outright eliminate this requirement and move forward without it. The second would be to keep it in our books. We have a residency requirement, but you can negate it with a simple waiver. And that way it functions really as a hiring preference. And there's not this convoluted, complicated system of 3 months, 24 months. This person can go 2 years with it. This person can go 12 months with this approval, that approval. It's pretty simple. If there's a good reason to hire that person, despite the fact they don't live there, hire them. We want people to live here, but if there's a good reason to hire them without it, give them a waiver. And that waiver could come from the head of personnel, or it could come from council, or we could make, only directors come to council, everyone else is head of personnel. It could be pretty simple. So those are the ideas I'd like to put forward. And I'll make a motion if I feel that we are getting consensus on either one.
You know, I would like to say that I think we're really talking about two different issues. The fact is we currently have a residency requirement, and the county is currently operating, as we established yesterday's meeting, in a way that is not consistent with the residency requirement in the existing ordinance. And I have to say it is operating in a manner that's not consistent with the existing ordinance, and the county has not for some time necessarily been acting in a way consistent with that, because it has had a long-standing practice of allowing 6 months for people who are hired who live outside the county to move in. And it has had a long-standing practice of exempting certain jobs from the requirement. I mean, apart from civil service, which is exempted by virtue of the fact that the state statute overrides the local ordinance. What Mr. Martin has proposed in this form of ordinance is a means of reconciling the practice of the county with the existing requirement that employees be a resident of the county. I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of the points you made about why we shouldn't have this, but I actually disagree very strenuously on one point. I do think that our county's senior managers should live in the county. And I think that because they are responsible for what goes on in the county, and they ought to be here. They ought to be close by. If there is a problem, they ought to be reachable. You know, somebody in the middle of a major snowstorm shouldn't have to not show up, or in the middle of a major problem shouldn't have to not show up because, well, I don't live close by. You know, the bottom line is you were supposed to live in the county. And so while I think there's, I think there's probably room to discuss what the scope of the residency requirement should be, because I tend to agree that there's a lot of jobs where, you know, frankly, we might lose really qualified younger people who tend to want to live in the city right now, but, you know, later on in their life might want to move out here closer to their jobs. And I can see a lot of reasons why we might want to not have a uniform residency requirement. But let me counter your two proposals with one of my own, that either we table this entire discussion and all of us revisit what it is we're really looking for in a residency requirement, and live with the fact, as council has apparently been living with it for years, that we're inconsistent. Or that we proceed to move forward with the ordinance changes that Mr. Martin has proposed in order to at least reconcile our current practice, recognizing that that there may be an interest in, continuing to have this discussion about whether to remove the residing in the county or not requirement.
Yeah, for my own part, I think that the goal of having folks who are working for the county live in the county is an admirable one. I think they ought to be. I think if we were not in a county that was as desirable to live in and work in, that didn't have the diversity that Delaware County has in terms of the types of communities that we have, from an urban to a very rural, and everything in between, small towns. It really is a diverse county, as we all know. I really do think that folks who are making decisions, as Christine said, that affect the county in profound ways, they ought to live here. With that said, Elaine, I agree with everything you said in the sense that it is important that we not cut off our nose to spite our face, that we have structures in place around this criteria that make allowances that allow for someone to have a period of time to move in. And so I think, if there is some form of waiver process, but not one that is overly generous, and still sort of pushes people toward the ultimate goal of living here in a reasonable amount of time, I'm supportive of that. But I really, I do think that it's important that people who work in the county, that they live in the county. And again, if this were a different circumstance, if we had if we lived in a different county, I'd say maybe otherwise. But I think just because Montgomery County and Chester County and Bucks County do something a certain way, I don't think they're always right about things. I think in this case, we have it right by having this residency requirement in some way, shape, or form.
And for my part, I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Madden. I do think that individuals who are the majority of our employees should be from Delaware County and should be invested in Delaware County. And I would like to see some sort of way that we can have a waiver system so that it doesn't limit us on some of those positions. As Ms. Ruther pointed out, maybe we have some young talent that lives in the city, but maybe eventually it might come out, might want to move out to Delaware County, or positions that we're finding it very hard to recruit for. I know we've run into that in a few departments. So those might be examples of where we could use a waiver system. But I do believe that we should keep this as it is in the code and continue to have the residency requirement, and for special circumstances, have some sort of waiver system.
I think it's also worth noting that this is just a first reading. I don't think we need to reach a consensus here today. If there's some sort of amendment that, Ms. Schaefer, that you'd like for us to consider, we have some time, as there's going to be a second reading and a vote at a future council meeting.
And Mr. Martin, just confirming procedurally, that would be proper that if we were to do our second reading at the next meeting, and any member of council wished to make an amendment, we're able to proceed at that point, or does that reset the clock, or does it depend on the significance of the amendment?
It more depends on the topic, and as we are advertising this as an ordinance to amend the code as it relates to the residency requirement, as you may make adjustments in the language in the context of residency, I think you can do that on the same schedule. The public is on notice. The council is considering changes to its residency requirement. There will be a hearing in connection with the second reading whenever it is scheduled, and that'll be a public opportunity to provide comment and perspective. So yes, I mean, I think that pretty much all the range of potential changes that have been discussed in the last 10 or 15 minutes could be adopted via amendments to this and then passage.
Okay, Ms. Schaefer, does that work for you, or do you I mean, obviously anybody's willing to or able to make any motions now or any suggested amendments now. I'll leave it to you for to tell us how you wish to proceed.
So I want to be clear, I could put forward an amendment at the next meeting and have that be within the notice requirements?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I just want to walk away from this meeting. I think the consensus I'm hearing is the second option, which is keep the residency requirement in place, but institute a waiver system. I hear the special dispensation for directors that Ms. Ruther has put forward. I think we'll continue to have conversation about that again. I live farther away from media in Radnor than people in West Philadelphia. So it's not really a distance thing. It's not really a county thing. It's a distance thing. And I think that that could be dealt with more cleanly and more efficiently with a hiring preference through a waiver. That's what you would be taking into consideration with a waiver. Is this person, okay, yes, they live in West Philly, but it's only 10 minutes from media. And likewise, Mother Teresa we'd want to hire Mother Teresa for human services, but she's in Bryn Mawr, which is, practically Radnor. So I think that what's hurting us as a county is this rigid requirement without the ability for us to weigh a candidate up according to the circumstances. So we can move on. I will work on an amendment to put forward at the next meeting that will be based upon keeping the residency requirement in place, but with a simplified waiver system that would allow us to hire people outside of the county.
You know, I think though, Ms. Schaefer, you, as you're working on this, please consider the flip side of it is, if we're willing to hire somebody who lives outside the county, what happens if we have a county employee who wants to move out of the county? I mean, people have been fired for violating this policy, and I'm not saying it's not something that that we shouldn't allow, but I guess I'm of the thought that if we're going to have it, or we're going to have it for certain categories of employees, and maybe it's not even all directors, maybe it's those where facilities or access to the facilities is critical. But you know, we could define it by job. But I'm sort of uncomfortable with a waiver at our convenience. We want to keep somebody, but their spouse really needs to move for a job. What's the answer then? Do we give them a waiver and let them move if we really like them? What if they're going to be commuting from, you know, down in Maryland? I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we need to think about here. And once we give ourselves the discretion, other than you've got a certain amount of time before you move in, or we're exempting whole categories of jobs because we need a bunch of people in those jobs and we just can't recruit enough, which has been what the practice has been. I think we need to understand, and it may be that the on balance, the council comes down and decides that we'd rather not have it at all. And I'm not saying I can't get there. I'm just telling you it's not where I'm at the moment, because I do think directors should be in the county. But please give some thought to that flip side of it too. Will somebody be able to apply for a waiver if they want to move out to Lancaster?
And I appreciate those comments, Ruther, as I do, Ms. Ruther, as I do others that have been offered today. I don't think you intended it as such, but I don't think we're talking about keeping people on just because we like them, you know, to just because, you know, we like hanging out with them in the cafeteria.
No, I meant we really like their work. That's what I meant.
Right. And I guess that's just what I wanted to stress, is that the goal, it serves the interests of Delaware County citizens to have the best people possibly working for the county. And to the extent that that person happens to live, you know, 2 miles on one side of a border than another, in some circumstances, I think Ms. Schaefer is suggesting it may benefit Delaware County citizens to have that person. If Mother Teresa lives in Bryn Mawr, we might want her helping us to do, you know, that which Mother Teresa does. You know, I just wanted to make sure that the people who are watching this weren't left with the impression that this was everybody's motivation is the same, which is how do we best serve the citizens of Delaware County? And I think ideally everybody would be a resident of Delaware County. And whatever way this goes, it would be my assumption that moving forward, the vast, vast, vast majority of all the people who are working for the county would be Delaware County citizens.
Agreed.
And just the last point I want to make is, you know, I think we focused on directors, but it's not just directors. I mean, we employ over 3,000 people. The county is one of the larger employers in the county. I think it's important that, you know, when we have the means of hiring Delaware County residents, we want to do that. We want to improve our employment rates in the county, and we have a means of doing that. There's a lot of folks who could use a good paying job in DELCO. I think we have to continue to give them preference. So I think there are a lot of reasons for why this residency requirement exists, and I'm really not terribly favorable of considering removal of it or reduction of it.
And for anybody who's listening, if you have an opinion on this, share it over the next 2 weeks, and we would love to hear. You know, there might be things we're not considering.
All right, thank you. Anything else on this agenda item? All right, Dr. Taylor.
Agenda item number 7, motion for approval to renew service and support agreement with MTS Software Solutions at a cost of $136,626.21 for the period of January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. This service includes software support on the license required and hardware support on all the scanners, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. I believe we have Mr. Bellotta here to present this agenda item. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Yes, I'm requesting approval to renew our service and support agreement with MTS Software Solutions. This includes hardware support for scanners and software for the following departments: the Office of Juvenile Support, Sheriff's Department, Park Police, Recorder of Deeds, Register of Wills, and Domestic Relations. The cost is included in the information technology budget for 2021. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? I guess just one question. I assume this is the only vendor that could provide this, given what we have, the software that we have.
No, actually, this software, MTS Software Solutions, provides another vendor software. We purchase most of our software through MTS in order to get a discounted price.
Gotcha. So they are not the manufacturer. They do not own the software. They're just the person we're going through to buy it.
Correct.
Okay. And they're the best deal. It's better to go through them than anybody else?
Well, this is a renewal, so I would have to go out and do additional work to get additional bids if you'd like me to do that. But part of the issue that we had this year was that we had the cyber incident, and this actually got delayed, and they provided us support through the month of January without this approval. So this is just a renewal.
I appreciate that. I mean, I guess I would just offer, and maybe it need not be for this one, but in general, we do appreciate, where possible, getting extra bids. I don't imagine there would be material savings here, but should stuff like this come up again, I would appreciate personally, and leave it to the rest of council for their comments, to get a competitive bid to see if there's a way to save taxpayers money.
Happy to do that.
Mr. Martin, I assume because this is of a specialized service, we're not required to get a competitive bid under the administrative code?
It is both the specialized service and also language in the code relating to emergency circumstances, harkening back to the reference to the cyber intrusion.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of agenda item number 7 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Bellotta.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 8, motion for approval to enter into an agreement between the County of Delaware and Price Stevenson's Acoustic Research for a term of 3 years beginning February 1, 2021 through January 31st, 2024 at a cost of $34,500 per year. The services would include handling the entire sound and lighting detail for the Delaware County Summer Concert Series, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
We have Mr. Manfrey here to present this. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Zidek, members of council. Thank you for your consideration on this agenda item. As I stated yesterday, our concert series has transitioned into a pretty big regional concert venue over the last few years. With that added audience, larger audiences, larger groups, with the need of bringing in a professional sound and lighting company. And this organization has been with us for the last few years. The price remained steadfast over the last few years. They provide a wonderful service. A question was brought up by, I believe, Councilwoman Schaefer about cancellations, either due to COVID or weather-related cancellations. Mr. Martin was kind enough to work some details out and craft an agreement, and we went back to this company, and they seemed to be amenable to some of the terms on the agreement. Thank you, Mr. Martin.
And if I could address that, there are two different circumstances. The weather cancellations, as I understand from Mr. Manfrey, the vendor does as much or more work on a particular night when there's a weather cancellation as when the concert actually goes off. So we're really not in a circumstance where it's equitable to seek adjustments in that case. I think the more profound circumstance was the uncertainty generated by COVID and how we would handle the COVID circumstance impinging upon this next summer. And the work essentially begins to gear up in the spring. So what is being suggested is the following adjustment. If the county cancels the series before April 1, the agreement will be terminated and there will be no fees. If the concert series is canceled after April 1, 1/3 of the stated fee would be due in recognition of the work that would be proceeding. The other circumstance we are trying to address is where the concert series proceeds but is truncated because of COVID considerations limiting the breadth of it. And we established a benchmark of 40 events, essentially constituting sort of the understood minimum that is being purchased for this amount. And the agreement would be that to the extent the concert series executed less than 40 events, there would be a reduction in the fee of $500 for each event under 40 that was carried out. So that was an attempt to achieve some rough equities, and that those provisions would apply for each of the 3 years in the unforeseen event that these circumstances would present themselves in future years.
That seems like a very fair solution. So I appreciate your work in short time frame getting that cleaned up.
Yes, Mr. Martin, thank you.
Thank you very much. That really addresses all the uncertainty and the issues that we could face. And let's hope that we execute this contract in full and every concert goes off. Thanks for your work.
Hear, hear. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, all those in favor of agenda item number 7 signify by saying aye. I'm sorry, number 8 signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Manfrey.
Take care.
Agenda item number 9, motion for approval to purchase IT equipment from Dell Amazon off CoStar's contract 003-051 for the Children and Youth Services Office in an amount not to exceed $54,708. The funding is 16% federal, 50% state, Children's and Youth Services and Information Technology Grant.
I'll second.
We have Ms. Garrison here to present this. Good evening.
Good evening. This is the request for the annual purchase of IT equipment, laptops, and related associated equipment through fraternity services through the Information Technology Grant. There's a 34% county match to balances with state and federal funds. As we discussed yesterday, this has allowed us to go, essentially children went fairly seamlessly to a remote workforce at the beginning of COVID. So this has been very helpful for our county in continuing the services to the residents.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 9 signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 10, motion for approval of agreements, contracts, and amendments with the Human Services Providers of Services as per the attached list, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
We'll look to Ms. Garrison again for this agenda item.
Yes, the first request is for permission, to apply for a grant. The grant amount is $125,000 per year for a 5-year period. If awarded, the intent of our office in conjunction with the district attorney's office is to use these funds for training in mental health first aid for police, as well as staff at the detention center and at the prison. We've been doing these trainings, and this in our minds the first step to initiating, as we talked about yesterday, similar to the police diversion to drug and alcohol treatment for individuals who have mental illness or mental health concerns when interacting with the police. Ideally, the goal would be to have those individuals streamlined into treatment instead of going through the criminal justice system or into incarceration. The second request is to accept the $75,000 grant year 3 for the Systems of Care funds. These are funds to help coordinate services for children that receive services through mental health, through drug and alcohol, through children and youth. And we also work with juvenile court and juvenile probation department. We've done things with these funds, such as trauma-informed training. We've also worked on collaboration with cultural and linguistic competency in the services that are being delivered. And a piece of it also goes to fund the newly started mental health juvenile court.
Thank you, Ms. Garrison. Any questions or comments from council?
Other than the fact that this is very much needed, especially now. I mean, we've had an opportunity to see the intersection of mental health challenges, that are clearly being exacerbated by the pandemic, and its intersection with law enforcement and other parts of the county system. I think this is incredibly important.
There's nothing further. All those in favor of agenda item number 10 signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Garrison.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 11, motion for approval of authorization to purchase Chevrolet Bulks EV from Whitmoyer Auto Group off CoStar's contract 026-054. Cost per vehicle is $29,300. Total cost not to exceed $439,500. This is subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and Mr. Hudak is here to present this. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. This purchase is going to replace 15 gasoline-powered vehicles. This would be, if approved, the initial start to council's initiative to change the county fleet over to electric. Mentioned in the request is the cost of the vehicles. They are being purchased on CoStars, which gives us an excellent discount. The list price on those vehicles is about $40,000. The CoStars contract gives us $11,000 off, bringing it to that total. I do want to mention that the council has applied for an all incentive grant, and if approved by the state, would additionally lower the cost of those vehicles to make the vehicles cost neutral. Would basically be about the same as what we would pay for a gasoline vehicle.
Thank you, Mr. Hudak. Any questions or comments from council?
I would like to repeat the recognition I gave last night or yesterday to Mr. Hudak, because this is a pretty ambitious undertaking that council has made a priority to go electric. And we have basically rocked the world of the motor fleet. And Mr. Hudak has embraced this wholeheartedly, has really started a complete re-education about these vehicles, about how they work, about the charging stations. It's been impressive how much he has taken this and run with it. And it's a whole different world than gasoline-powered vehicles. So I'm very grateful. We're all very grateful that you've embraced it so enthusiastically. This is going to be great for our county. And thank you for the work that you have put into this and that you will continue to put into it.
Thank you.
The only other thing that I would add, in addition to my thanks, is that I did ask yesterday during the meeting how we went about calculating sort of the lifetime cost of a vehicle. You know, we have the purchase price, which, as I understand it, in this case is $29,000 for the electric and something like $22,000 for the gas version of the same. So there's a $7,000 delta there. Mr. Lazarus was kind enough to send me something he had done a quick down and dirty that we'll try to do more research on. But the lifetime over 3 years, the savings of the electric vehicle after accounting for the cost of electricity against the savings in gas price plus maintenance was about, I think it was like $4,300. We're getting, pretty close. We're coming down to less than $24,000 for the electric and as against $22,000 for the gas. So if we can refine that number, I think that would be great. If we can get a grant on top of it, then we're saving the planet and the county money at the same time, which, is obviously a win-win all the way around. So I appreciate the ongoing work on this. And, we're all kind of learning about this new world and together. And I think it's what we have seen over the past few years is that the cost of these cars is coming down. The ability, the choices that we have are going up, and this will be becoming more and more viable for us going forward. And as a way to, again, as I said, save Delaware County taxpayers money and save the planet at the same time. And also just I think it helps to show that Delaware County is on the cutting edge of changes, and that we are open for business for those folks who are like-minded.
And also that the AFIG grant is open yearly, and there's 2 application periods per year. So the plan is to try and get some money, to apply for some money for the county, to save money on the cost of these vehicles, hopefully twice a year. We're going to try and get every grant and come up with every funding source we can to keep the costs low while we initiate this.
Great, thank you. I think you also explained yesterday, I'm not sure if you did today, that some of these cars would be based in Media, some of them would be based in Upper Darby, and some of them out at Fair Acres. Do I have that right?
Sorry, yes. 3 locations we're going to start with. Fair Acres is going to have 5. The courthouse complex is going to have 5. And then 69th Street, we have a secure lot down there for Human Services, CYS, probation. We're going to have chargers installed in all 3 locations and deploy those vehicles in 3 different locations for those departments.
Great.
We'll get a variety of use out of these to get going.
Any other questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 11 signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Hudak.
Thank you. Good night.
Agenda item number 12, motion for approval to accept the Code Blue Award Grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development in the amount of $78,355, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we have Ms. Hill here to present this agenda item. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Council. Due to the need for social distancing in our homeless facilities, the county's cold weather plan, or the Code Blue plan, has been modified for this year. These new grant funds will be used to place vulnerable homeless persons living on the street or other places not meant for human habitations and place them into hotels when temperatures drop below 40 degrees. So through this grant, we can provide an additional 960 hotel vouchers through April 1st. This program will be coordinated through the Community Action Agency of Delaware County. It will also be supplemented with street outreach services that will be provided under a separate grant. And those services will be provided by the nonprofit Horizon House. So this evening, I am just requesting your acceptance of this grant.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I would like to say thank you for pursuing this grant. I know it comes at such a critical time where we're seeing an increase in our homeless population while also seeing a decrease in the places that we can house them because of COVID and the restrictions that we face there. So this really allows us another avenue to place individuals who are in need. So thank you for that.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, all those in favor of agenda item number 12 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Hill.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 13, motion for approval to award contract E-103120 between the County of Delaware and LGB Mechanical Incorporated for the replacement of the courthouse third floor HVAC system at Delaware County Courthouse for a price not to exceed $228,000, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Mr. Beerling here to present this.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I'm here today to ask for the approval to award the contract between the County of Delaware and LGB Mechanical Corporate, 555 North Route 73, West Berlin, New Jersey, 08091. The replacement of the courthouse third floor HVAC system at Delaware County Courthouse Media 19063. Contract number E-103120. The sum of $228,000, subject to the solicitor's approval. This is a project that is on the capital budget list. This unit supplies air conditioning for some of the judge's office in the courthouse. The project was advertised on October 29, 2020, began on November 5th, 2020, in Philadelphia Inquirer. It was also advertised on the county website November 12th. At 9 a.m., there was a mandatory pre-bid meeting to look at the project. There were approximately 9 contractors that showed up for the pre-bid meeting. The bids for the project were due back to central purchasing on December the 1st, 2020, prior to 4 p.m. Bids were opened on December 2nd, 2020 at 10 a.m. in the council chamber meeting room, room 100. We received 4 bids for the project, and reviewing the low bid documents submitted by LGB Mechanical, the paperwork was in order. It was recommended that the mechanical contract be awarded to LGB Mechanical of 555 Route 73, West Berlin, New Jersey. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Beerling. Will LGB be doing the work themselves, or are there subcontractors involved?
I think there will be some subcontractors because there is some steel dunnage that has to be put up there with the unit that's there. The unit's actually a little bit hard to get to. You can see it out the window of the law library, or if you're in the courtyard, you can see where it's standing there. So I think most of the work will be done by LGB themselves, but there will be some work with a steel unit, I will believe, steel contractor.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 13, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 14, motion for approval of professional services agreement between the County of Delaware and Gillian Hartman for engineering services for the backup 911 center at the Government Center Complex for a fee not to exceed $72,300, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Mr. Beerling here to present this agenda item as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I'm here today to ask for the approval of a professional service agreement between the County of Delaware and Gillian Hartman Incorporated, P.O. Box 345, Valley Forge, PA 19481, for engineering services for the backup 911 center at the Government Center Complex for a fee not to exceed $72,300, subject to the solicitor's approval. The scope of the work will include the following: cooling and heating electrical load analysis concept for electrical emergency power and existing generators, HVAC dedicated units for the mechanical space, type and location, existing conditions assessment, visit the site, survey the area of renovation for as-built conditions and conditions of the existing mechanical and electrical systems. Number 2, determine the impact of the existing building systems capacity for the proposed room renovations. Number 3, review utility and systems impact outside of the proposed renovation area, determine electrical mechanical upgrades to the basic as building systems. Design development. Number 1, using the information generated during the analysis and assessment, develop drawings to convey overall design concepts for the mechanical electrical upgrades and renovations. Number 2, submit drawings for review by the county. Number 3, attend a design review with the county. Number 4, final acceptance of the proposed mechanical electrical concept drawings, develop a preliminary budget for the mechanical electrical design concepts, develop a preliminary budget cost for the mechanical electrical work. Bidding documents, preparation for the mechanical electrical bidding documents, specifications for the scope of the work, approved by the client. Number 2, bidding documents will be submitted for review. Number 3, bidding document specifications drawings will be issued to the client for use in public bidding for the renovation of the project. Bidding phase, attend a pre-bid meeting held at the site, review and respond to RFIs during the bidding period. Construction spirit, attend initial pre-construction meetings, review the contractor's shop drawing submittals. Construction meetings will be 6 visits at the site, review operations and maintenance manuals, and close out of paperwork. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Beerling. Any questions for Mr. Beerling on agenda item number 14?
Do we have like a timeline of when the engineering will be done and the bidding will go out, or do we have an expectation?
We don't have it right now, Ms. Schaefer. It's all according to what his findings are going to be on his assessment. And I think I mentioned yesterday that we had talked to this gentleman here. Actually did Chester County Courthouse, did their 911 center. And the way they operate is they actually have the 911 center they operate at, but their emergency backup they actually use on a daily basis with a limited number of people. Mm-hmm. So that way you're always using that, so you know it's working and you're not going to go there. The sample that he gave to me was, it's like putting a car in a garage for 4 years and going over there trying to start it when you need it and it doesn't want to run. So this way they break it up, and let's say there's 20 people, they send 10 or 12 to the 8 go over to the emergency center, and they're using the different stations to make sure that they all are operating properly in case there is an emergency.
Makes sense.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Beerling? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 14, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 15, motion for approval of contract between the County of Delaware and J.R. Metzger for electrical study for emergency services building for an amount not to exceed $46,000, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Rusler. Mr. Beerling.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I'm here today to ask for the approval to award a CoStarz contract between Delaware County and J.R. Metzger, 3101 Concord Road in Aston, 19104, for electrical study for emergency services building in Lima, PA, for amount not to exceed $46,000, subject to the solicitor's approval. This is the emergency services building, electrical study, emergency services center, 160 North Middletown Road in Lima. This project it needs to address the electrical wiring and components for the building on the campus. The electrical contractor shall conduct a facilities inspection prior to installing and recording meters and circuit tracing specific herein to produce an accurate assessment that identifies the code compliance of all visible and discernible defects, including all electrical panels, circuits requiring meter and circuit tracing. The electrical contractor shall focus on the following property elements: electrical systems, transformers, emergency generators, power distribution, and lighting. Electrical systems inspection and testing. Contractor shall conduct the following inspections and tests on the electrical panels: low voltage circuits, circuit breakers, according to the inventory attached. Infrared testing, ground NEC code compliance on overcurrent and wiring methods, bonding NEC code compliance on overcurrent and wiring methods, physical conditions, check hole closures, proper covers, missing breakers / blanks, clearances, foreign matter, dust, oil, and combustibles. Circuit breakers will be checked for smooth operation and conditioning of molded case. Electrical drawings provide existing conditions, electrical power distribution drawings of each electrical power distribution panel. Also provide one-line drawings and are marked up. Project deliverables provide an Excel format file along with PDF electronic files of all recorded panel readings on a thumb drive, provide AutoCAD drawings to be submitted on all identified circuits, provide new panel schedules in Word form based on the circuit tracing results with hard copies on each panel and attached to each panel cover, provide and attach permanent panel ID tags to the face of the panels. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bierling. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 15 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Bierling.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Agenda item number 16, motion for approval to award contract CP-102220 to WB Mason to furnish and deliver office supplies for the Delaware County Courthouse and Fair Acres for a period of 2 years for a combined cost of $79,064.72, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Ms. Burnett here to present this item. Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, Council. I'm here to ask for the approval to award the lowest bidder, WB Mason, to a period of 2 years for a combined cost of $79,064.72. We received 3 responses, and WB Mason's was the lowest responsible bidder for both locations.
Thank you. Anything from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 16, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 17, motion for approval to advertise for bids to furnish and deliver janitorial, household, and paper products for Fair Acres Geriatric Center for a period of 1 year.
Excuse me, I second.
Bless you, Ms. Ruther, and thank you. We have Ms. Burdett here to present agenda item number 17.
I am asking to get approval to advertise for bid for furnishing of and delivery of janitorial, household, paper products to Fair Acres Geriatric for 1 year. The manufacturer of the paper, poly, and styrofoam, Dart trash bag manufacturing, and Kimberly Clark. The reason they do the 1 year contract is that they are a commodity and will only lock in the price to distribute for 1 year. If we do more than 1 year, the distribution have to guess at the price increase, and most of the time the county ends up paying more for the guess.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Are hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 17, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 18, motion for approval to advertise for bids to furnish and deliver USP medical oxygen for Fair Acres Geriatric Center for a period of 5 years.
Second.
Ms. Burdett, last one.
I'm here to ask the approval to advertise for bid for USP medical oxygen for Fair Acres Geriatric. These are oxygen bottles that residents use on their wheelchairs and bedsides. The oxygen companies like to lock into a longer contract so that we can get a better pricing.
Any questions for Ms. Burdett? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Against all odds, the ayes have it again. Thank you, Ms. Burdett. Good evening.
Thank you.
Before you leave, Ms. Burdett, I just want to thank you. As we said yesterday, we know that you jumped in shovel in hand and have been working on short notice to help us in the purchasing department. So again, we really thank everything you're doing for jumping in and helping out.
You're welcome.
Agenda item number 19, motion for approval to submit and accept grant from Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency for the term of February 1, 2021 through September 30th, 2021, in the amount of $49,352. The grant will support the reduction of overdoses among the probation and reentry populations by providing immediate resources to remove traditional barriers to success. This grant will also provide training and education for justice practitioners on substance use disorder and overdose preventions.
Second.
We have Ms. Hibbert here to present this. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and council members. Tonight, I'm before you seeking approval to both submit and accept a grant from the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, as stated for the term of February 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2021, in the amount of $49,352. With this grant, we will be able to distribute 1,000 reentry bags that will be used for our probation and reentry populations. Within those bags will be a drawstring bag with the county seal. Included will be Narcan, which is being provided by the district attorney's office, as well as $20 gift card, Walmart gift cards for essential items, 5 SEPTA trans passes, a disposable face mask, as well as printed materials that will include numbers of drug and alcohol and mental health treatment providers, various resources, and important agency numbers for those being released. This grant's also going to give us the opportunity to provide multiple trainings. At this point, we're looking at 3 different trainings and education for all justice practitioners on substance use disorder and overdose prevention.
Out of curiosity, does this packet go to everyone who's being released or just those who are in a drug treatment program?
So at this point, how they're being identified is an opiate-based, someone who's being identified as an opiate user. So what will happen is we will identify through probation, through Gagnon 1 and Gagnon 2 hearings, we'll identify the appropriate client. Upon release, they'll be provided one of these, what we're calling a reentry kit. They'll be provided one of them at their time of release. And the goal for us was multiple things. For us, I mean, I think everybody knows that clients have, when they first come out, there's a struggle. So for us, with this money, we're able to provide a little bit of assistance. We're hoping that the trans passes help with the initial transportation of getting them to, whether it be a first probation appointment, to the county welfare department, to a treatment center for assessment. Obviously the essential items, because we know there are some people who are coming out that don't really have a lot of resources. So they'll be to answer your question, they'll initially be identified through our department, but it's specifically for opiate-based users.
Well, Ms. Hibbert, I know that I'm not sure if you've even officially taken the reins yet, or if you did very recently, but a few people come out of the gates with such immediate impact as you have. I really think for a modest sum of money, the impact that this $49,000 grant is going to have in the most tangible of ways. We've talked about in the past that people who leave incarceration with an opioids addiction, they're between 40 and 60 times more likely to die of an overdose during that period. The fact that you're putting in their hands what very well may save their lives and get them through that bridge with life-saving medication and Narcan and the tools to kind of help them, get back on their feet and some information about where they can get treatment. It's really, I just really want to acknowledge the thoughtfulness of what this package is going to do for 1,000 people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're hoping to have this, we're very hopeful that this is going to be successful. And I just briefly, I want to thank my current boss, Mr. Wraith, who has been very essential during this process. He's actually retiring, for those who don't know, as of this Friday after 35 years of service here at the county. So he will be definitely missed.
Mr. Zida, could I ask a question?
Please.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Hibbert, and congratulations on your taking that role. In speaking with Mr. Wraith, I talked to him about the gift cards, and we were on board with making sure that would be okay and we could work. But it wasn't decided where they were coming from. I was just wondering, did it go with Walmart because they can invoice us, or we were talking about other food stores as well? And I didn't know whether that was decided on specifically or whether that's still open.
That can still be open for discussion. I think initially his impression was, after speaking with you, since I believe Walmart was had been approved before through the county, that we would go in that direction, because obviously a store of that nature can provide quite a few essentials. But that's actually something, if anyone has a suggestion and they would prefer a different location, it's one that can be approved through the county, we would be open to changing that if that's anyone's thought.
We had talked about just food stores, but I know Walmart offers food. I leave it to council. I just know we would support a $20 gift card in some form or fashion for essentials and food. So I'll leave it at that for council. I just wanted to follow up on that.
And if I may, I think part of the reason in the grant, one of the reasons why we were looking at Walmart was because the essentials, as far as, whether it is toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, things of that nature that they might need. Specifically in the grant, they're not supposed to use it for food. But if we were to go through a place like Walmart, obviously they would be able to get any items for the $20, and that wouldn't be an issue. If we went specifically to a food store, that probably would be an issue amongst receiving the grant through PCCD.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave it to you, Ms. Hibbert, to make that determination. And it seems to me we don't want to do something that would jeopardize the award, and we want to make sure that we're giving folks, gives them access to things that they might most need. So if Walmart fits both of those bills, it sounds like a good solution to me, but I'll leave it to you for that.
Thank you.
And my understanding is the reason that we're going sort of both submitting the grant request and accepting it at the same time is just because of the time frame involved here.
Yes, sir. The grant has to be submitted by January 28th. And the funding begins as of February 1st. So we're just on a very short window.
And it was a non-competitive grant, correct? They basically reached out to us and said, DELCO needs this. We will provide these funds.
Correct. We were one of 10 counties that were identified as a county that could use this assistance.
Right. If there's nothing further, then all those in favor of agenda item number 19, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Hibbert.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
And for agenda item number 20, I'm not actually making a motion because we've already made this, and I'm just correct.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think it's just we're confirming the intent. So I guess you can just read what we're doing, but we won't look for a second or a vote on it.
Sounds good. That's what I thought. So agenda item number 20, confirming the intent of the county to establish a commercial property assessed clean energy program for a district consisting of the entire county pursuant to 12 PA CSA 4301, and requesting notices of the establishment of the district be sent by the county clerk to all municipalities in the county to notify them of their possible inclusion in such district. This is subject to solicitor's approval.
Thank you. We have Ms. Goodrich-Cairns and Mr. Lichtenstein here to present this agenda item.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. We are requesting council confirm intent to establish the CPACE program in Delaware County. CPACE is an acronym that stands for Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. Pennsylvania became the 34th state in the union to adopt CPACE through Act 30 of 2018. This would become an economic development finance tool only available to commercial property owners and developers who would like to upgrade to more energy efficient systems or would like to build energy efficient buildings. Current finance tools available to facilitate these considerable investments are typically limited to short-term bridge or construction loans that are due at the end of installation or construction. A countywide CPACE program will provide an alternative tool with a longer repayment term. An approved project would have a CPACE lien that is attached to the property, the actual tax parcel, where the owner receives one invoice a year for the loan, typically with their annual county real estate tax bill, until paid in full. Keystone Energy Alliance states that nationally $500 million has been invested through CPACE loans, and many believe that will double in the next few years. They also feel that Pennsylvania CPACE can help retrofit one of the nation's oldest building stocks and accelerate growth in the local energy efficiency industry that accounted for 68,000 jobs pre-COVID. This is still a relatively young program in Pennsylvania. Only 10 counties have adopted an active program at the moment, and 3 are in process. At Commerce, we have been asked if CPACE will be initiated in Delaware County since the legislation passed. The initial inquiries were more general in nature, but in the last 6 months, there's been considerable interest from Delaware County commercial property owners, developers, and business owners that would like to utilize this tool to make energy efficient upgrades to their existing buildings. That is why we're here this evening. With the interest, we would like to ask Council to confirm intent to establish a countywide CPACE program, followed with a letter from County Clerk Ann Coogan notifying the 49 municipalities of the intent. After that, the next few steps, we will be coming back to Council in order to request that they formally adopt program with a resolution or ordinance that will include clear process and countywide program guidelines.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from Council?
John, you have anything to add to that?
The only thing, as I mentioned last night, the reason we're doing this in 2 stages is, again, that before the statute says that we have to give the notice before the actual adoption of the program, which is why we're coming to Council both to describe the intent to do the program in the future, but allowing us to go give the notice before it's formally adopted.
Great. Well, as I said yesterday, this program is an absolute no-brainer for us. It will allow our businesses to invest in their infrastructure at favorable terms that will save them money, help our environment. And gee, I didn't know that we had that oldest housing stock in the nation. That's pretty. So we'll get working on that with this program.
For me, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this back to the table, because I know I had a few businesses who reached out to me to see if we were going to pursue this. So thank you very much. And as Ms. Schaefer said, this is a no-brainer. It seems like a really good opportunity for us to help our businesses move forward.
If I could just correct myself, I just said housing stock, and I want to make sure everyone understands this is not a residential program. I think that your quote was building stock, and this is for commercial only.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, if there's nothing further, we're not calling for a vote on this, but offer my thanks as well. And I think it's an innovative program and fully supportive of us moving forward with it.
Thank you.
Dr. Taylor?
Item number 21, motion for approval of a resolution appointing Delaware County Industrial Development Authority as a grantee for the purpose of local administration of the Delaware County 911 Communications Redevelopment Access Capital Program grant in the amount of $1,500,000, subject to solicit approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we have Ms. Goodgers-Cairns here and Mr. Martin to present this agenda item.
Double header. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and member of council. Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program is a hard construction grant program. The Delaware County 911 Communications Grant, RCAP, is for the redevelopment of the 911 communications system, the portion that requires hard construction in the installation or redevelopment of communication towers to provide more efficient and reliable communications for our first responders. RCAP is considered by many to be the most complicated and arduous state grant program that exists. All RCAP projects have to adhere to statute and policy and includes direct oversight from a state-trained and assigned consultant who monitors the project for contract and construction compliance. RCAP projects must abide by program regulations that include but are not limited to competitive bidding requirements, PA's Steel Products Procurement Act, Trade Practices Act, and they must register the project with Department of Labor and Industry, paying Pennsylvania prevailing wage for hard construction labor. Commerce has developed a level of sophistication with this program, having been the largest facilitator or local administrator for RCAP projects in Delaware County since program inception in '99. Within the last decade, we have successfully closed over 23 releases totaling $52 million in grant funding, with total project costs exceeding $200 million in Delaware County. The agenda item tonight is requesting that council assign the grant to the Delaware County Industrial Development Authority due to our experience with RCAP. The term grantee is programmatic, where IDA would take first position and contract with the state for this project. Delaware County will become a subgrantee, and in spite of the misleading terms, we will remain the ultimate receiver of the grant funding with a successful RCAP program of work.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, anything to add?
No, it's been covered. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can I just explain for anybody who's listening, this RCAP is the project, this is the first down payment towards the very big project that we have committed to doing to rehaul our 911 communication system. The whole project is somewhere between 40 and 60 million. And this is really just the first little baby steps towards funding that. So we will continue to look for other grant sources. We have put some money in our capital account, but this will get us going and get us started on this really important project.
All right, thank you. If there's nothing further from council then, thank you, Ms. Goodrich-Garrett. Appreciate your work on this, and Ms. Schaefer's hard work on this as well.
Thank you.
There's nothing further. All those in favor of agenda item number 21, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Good evening.
Agenda item number 22, motion for approval to authorize the executive director to prepare, issue, and advertise requests for proposals for government policy development and representation services at the state and or federal government levels, subject to solicitor's approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I believe Mr. Lazarus is here to present this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am asking for council's authorization to prepare, issue, and advertise a request for proposals for our government policy development and representation services. I'm bringing this forward now because our contract with Capital Strategies expires at the end of June, and this will give us adequate time to seek out qualified service providers. As you may remember, the initial contract with Capital Strategies expired at the end of December, and I asked that we extend it for 6 months, and council approved with a condition that we seek a competitive follow-on contract. As we discussed yesterday at agenda review, this may result in the award of more than one contract because we have separated out representation services at the state level and the federal government level because they may, and in fact do require different registrations and different presence. So I ask for your authorization to proceed and to bring the contract award back to you prior to the current expiration of Capital Strategies contract at the end of June.
Yeah, I would just like to comment that, Capital, I think there was some debate among council when we, certainly when I took office, as to whether or not Delaware County needed this sort of assistance. In a lot of ways, Capital Strategies and the folks we're talking about engaging at the federal level are lobbyists, but they're not lobbyists in the sense that, certainly they're helping us talk to stakeholders in the government offices, but I don't know how we would have been able to navigate everything that we've had to navigate with the CARES Act funding and legislative challenges that have come up this year without some on the ground assistance. It's tough. We are a county that is kind of at the intersection of, urban and suburban, and without having a health department, we've had to navigate all kinds of things. It's been a real challenge, and I do think that the money that we have spent has been well spent in the sense that it's furthered some economic goals and objectives, but it has also just kept us informed as things have been percolating through, and that hasn't always been the case. So from every aspect of the state government or the federal government. So I really do appreciate what they've brought to us. I don't know if it's something we'll need forever, but for right now, it's I think a good step to take to keep these services in place.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 22, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 23, motion for approval of professional agreement with Mary Ann Jackson to provide services as the interim director of elections for the period of February 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2021, in an amount not to exceed $100,000, subject to solicitor's approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and Mr. Lazarus is here to present this as well.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Ms. Mary Ann Jackson was our interim director of elections in the time frame from last summer leading through the completion of the November general election. That was an election that saw a dramatic change in the landscape of how elections are conducted. We went from a few thousand mail-in ballots to well over 100,000 mail-in ballots. We also had record high turnout in voter participation. Throughout those challenges, Ms. Jackson proved her skill as a manager and also as a motivator of staff. She also was able to coordinate among the many different participants in the election. The upcoming May election carries different challenges in that it's a primary and there is the potential for statewide referenda to be on the ballot as well. Our goal is to complete the journey and to incorporate and institutionalize all the great changes that have been made in our election process. Two items of note. One is that this has been recommended for approval by the Board of Elections. And secondly, it is going on at the same time we are interviewing candidates for the permanent director of elections position. And we hope to be able to have some overlap during this process as well, so that we won't have to go outside again for this particular service. So I ask for your approval to award this contract.
Thank you, Howard.
Can I ask if, right now our state legislature is holding hearings over the next months, actually, about the election service, election legislation, Act 77, and experiences and how to improve it. Is part of what Ms. Jackson has been charged with is to give input, having lived through this, give input from Delaware County's standpoint of what we would like to see happen in those hearings, input into those hearings.
The agreement is pretty broad-based, and it certainly couldn't accommodate her providing her recommendations and experiences. In fact, the statement of work requires her to provide an after-action report, but certainly to the extent that she can help support council's policy development and input at the state level, she certainly can participate in that.
Great, that's good to know. We may need her to tell our story.
And just to confirm, because I feel like I've gotten myself confused, which is easily done. Ms. Jackson would not be an employee of the county then? She would be acting as an independent contractor, 1099 employee, and so this is a separate contract with her. Have I got that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from council?
And I want to clarify, I'm sorry if you said this already, but I just want to call out and clarify that this was a recommendation from our Board of Elections. They are coming to us and asking us to enter into this contract because they feel that this is the best way to administer our elections going forward.
That's correct.
I wouldn't say they feel it's the best way to administer the elections going forward. I think I would say, having listened to the meeting, that they say it's necessary to enable us to continue to move forward and prepare for the upcoming primary, where petitions will be circulating in about 3 weeks and 3.5 weeks. That we continue to need that sort of overall coordination of the department that is difficult for the people that we have in place with their technical expertise to do while they're still doing the jobs that they have. And so pending the hiring of a permanent director, I think what I heard from the Board of Elections is we continue to need somebody in this role. So that's why they've recommended that we essentially enter into this additional contractual period with Ms. Jackson.
Mr. Zidek, if I could just make a comment too, I understand that the Board of Elections recommended that this work be done. And if council determines that we're going to get that work done this way with a contract with an independent contractor, that's fine. But my office has made recommendations on what should be in these contracts to make sure that we're compliant with our processes and protect the taxpayer money as best as we can. And we're out of the emergency of the last election. So I think that we have learned a lot about working through these kind of contracts. And we've provided comments to Mr. Lazarus. And I think some of those comments, I think, have made their way into these contracts. I'm hoping that they are, including insurance requirements and some procurement issues. So that may be more in the next contract, but I just want to let people know that we have commented on that, and we are mindful of administering these the payments to these contractors.
And if I could comment, we appreciate the input from the controller's office, and that input has been incorporated into edits to the agreements. So the agreements reflect those changes as contrasted with the versions that have been in place during the general election.
Thank you. I think it really benefits everybody. So I appreciate that.
And I appreciate your input as well. We all desire to have life return to a more normal pace, and the requirements of the administrative code as well as the practices that you've identified have been incorporated from the procurement standpoint into the agreements.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 23, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 24, motion for approval of professional agreement with Christina Perrone to provide project management services in relation to the May primary election, improvements to the medical examiner's facilities and operations, formation of the county health department, and other initiatives for the period of February 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2021 in an amount not to exceed $100,000, subject to solicitor's approval.
I'll second.
Mr. Lazarus, take it away.
Thank you again. This contract recommends, I'm asking for approval to enter into a professional service agreement with Ms. Christina Perrone. Ms. Perrone was engaged also during the lead up and execution of the November election. Her first task was to provide project management services for the creation of the Election Operations Center in Chester, also known as the Wharf. That was something that should have normally taken 9 months, but we got that space up and running in a matter of 6 weeks. Upon conclusion of that effort, she showed great administrative and project management skills in organizing what I would call the game day efforts to make sure that we were able to recruit and train the volunteers and have them participate not only in the mail-in election process, but also the process to return the voting machines to the new processing center. She has been engaged in developing the processes that we seek to memorialize and institutionalize for the election. And I think that that process continues to be a need. This was presented also to the Board of Elections and carries their recommendation to council for award. You'll note that in the description of services, I've added some other project management requirements. The priority in this agreement will be on supporting the election, but there may be some time available to help with some other ongoing improvements, including a review of the medical examiners, facilities, and operations, some assistance in bringing the larger schedule for the formation of the county health department through the specifics, and some other initiatives that are ongoing, including things such as negotiating the lease for the Old Chester Courthouse. So while her priority will be on the election, there may be an opportunity to use her skills on some of these other tasks during the time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lazarus. Just to kick things off, same question as before. This is Ms. Perrin will not be a county employee. She will be an independent contractor, and as such would not be entitled to health benefits or pension or any of the other benefits that employees are entitled to here, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I guess I just had a few questions about how did we come up with the number of $100,000 for 6 months? I mean, I understand it a little bit with the director position for Ms. Jackson, but this seems a little like that this is not on the same level of a position as that. And so also, how are we assessing hours, or it just seems like the amount of $100,000 over 6 months seems a little excessive for this position.
Well, the contract is not to exceed $20,000 per month. It has a restriction of $5,000 per week as well for the estimated duration of 5 months. Ms. Peroni is a high-level project manager. If you were to take the rate of $125 an hour and subtract that our normal benefits burden, you'd wind up with a project manager in the area of probably $75,000 to $80,000 per year, which would be again an experienced but more junior project manager. So, given her skill level, this represents a good value to the county. In both these contracts, we put in the provision to provide more detail on how the hours will be spent. The question was asked yesterday if there are items that are not election related, would they be allocated to the different efforts? And the answer to that is yes. So their contracts require that they submit the format for how they're going to record their hours and provide a description of the work in greater detail than perhaps we received under the previous agreement.
Sorry, struggling to find my mute button there. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Lazarus on agenda item number 24?
I just had a follow-up. Was the provision about procuring things and reimbursement, did that stay in this contract or come out of this contract?
That is in this contract, but it specifically references the administrative code. It provides the safeguards that you had expressed concerns about, and any small purchases that are made would only be done with prior approval. I don't anticipate a strong need for that, but I kept that in there because it became necessary during the general election and proved to be helpful for some small things that came up at the last minute. But again, we've included all the references to the appropriate sections of, where we included a reference to for compliance with the administrative code as it relates to procurement.
Yeah, I just have to express to council that I don't see why we would have a consultant be reimbursed. If you include that in there, again, we're not in an emergency situation, and we don't allow other people to just buy things. So I don't support that. And if that's in this contract, again, we're not in an emergency, and trying to work through these things in latitude, I'm not going to feel as compelled to try and do that. So I don't see the need for people to be able to buy up to $1,000 or $2,500 a month. I just so I express that concern.
I think there's I certainly appreciate where the controller is coming from. I'll defer to our solicitor, but I understand your position. And I think that, as Mr. Lazarus said, that the direction really ought to be given that there is an administrative process to go through to get things purchased. My hope is that, one of the things that both Ms. Perrone and Ms. Jackson have been doing is providing a lot of insight into what the future of the election department should look like, including its need for what it hasn't really had in the past, which is somebody to handle administrative tasks when people are sort of fully engaged trying to manage 16 other things. So my hope is that going forward, while this may be in there, and Mr. Lazarus is mindful of your concerns, I know, Ms. Phillips, and that one of the things that we're focusing on is getting administrative support in the election offices.
If I could just add one thought. I think we've been wholly respectful of the controller's concerns, but nothing can ever be known with 100% certainty. There are some changes to our procurement processes we need to make that bring us up to date and envision things like online purchases, as well as providing a credit card process that includes the county's tax exempt number. That's something that we still need to go through. I know that the controller has concerns about it, but there were times where we're hamstrung when we needed to just pick some things up at the last minute. I think we know more, and those situations will be fewer and far between. I think we have better control over it, and I'm comfortable with including it in the provision because I believe we have adequate controls.
Just to close on this, and I'm sure we'll deal with it later. We don't have credit cards in the county. There's a reason for that. We haven't had any problem, and typically the same people ask for being able to make these kind of purchases. So I'm happy to have further discussions with Mr. Lazarus and council about being able to buy things before we get them and to have people put things on their credit card. Right now, people can be reimbursed, and they are reimbursed really quickly. And there's also petty cash that's available for people to make small purchases. It generally works throughout the county. So I'm sure we'll discuss this again someday as we all go forward.
And I look forward to that discussion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Lazarus on agenda item number 24? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lazarus.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 25 will be an informational presentation to inform council members of the 2021 budget reallocation for the courts.
Thank you. I believe we have Mr. Lazarus is going to take this over. I think Ms. McComas was unable to attend tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I am here on behalf of Ms. McComas, who had a conflict she couldn't reschedule. During the development of the 2021 budget, we worked with court staff to eliminate many of the vacant positions, longstanding vacant positions that were there, and to try and help them both organize and right-size their budget. President Judge Kelly has been extremely helpful and magnanimous throughout this process. I want to also call out Councilmember Madden's assistance in getting us together to get through this process. What we are looking to do is to realign the allocations among the different departments that make up the court's budget. It does not in any way increase the total budget that council adopted, and it has no impact on the tax rate that was adopted. There is, though, a shift of some funds between some of the administrative functions into areas like the juvenile, those parts of the courts that deal with juveniles. There is an adjustment to the magistrate district judge budget where they've received some additional funding as well. Council approved as part of the budget a $500,000 court reserve fund. The court has chosen to apply that as well. So there are a small number of departments where their budgets combined were decreased by $300,000. Those include adult probation, bail, and their diagnostics. Again, the areas that received the increases were in some areas of court admin and support, the juvenile court, as I said, the magistrate, district justices, and juvenile detention. So it works out to a no net change. It doesn't require any changes to the adopted budget, but as council has always indicated, transparency is one of their core values, and I wanted to bring this back for your information.
Thank you, Mr. Lazarus. Ms. Schaefer?
Did we have we seen this budget? I didn't see it in the packet.
The pages have been included in the budget document that was posted. I believe they were supposed to be forwarded with the agenda item.
Let me double check. I might have missed it, but.
Also, I was brought to my attention today just from past practice, and the administrative code in section 635 provides that there can be interdepartmental transfers within a budget, but it has to happen after January 31. There's a provision in the code that requires it to not happen until February 1. So I just call Mr. Martin's attention to that section 635C. And then any of those changes need to be transmitted also to the controller's office. And I don't think I've seen those pages either. So I think Ms. McComas was going to be getting that to me this week, I hope. So, but please take a look at that for budget management procedures.
Yeah, I would just ask one question. I think the reason for that may be that does council retain jurisdiction over the ability to revisit the budget? I think from a statutory perspective, we can do that until January 31st, that there's a 1 month. And Mr. Martin, that may be the reason why it is, you can't make an interdepartmental change like that until after the end of January. I just put that out there for consideration.
So I just want to be clear, we're not amending the budget here. This is interdepartmental amendments.
Yeah, but I think what I heard Ms. Phillips say is that the county code doesn't allow us to do that until after the 31st. And that may be because if it's going to be done before the 31st, officially, it has to be done by council. I would guess. Mr. Martin, I don't know what your thoughts are.
This change does not require council approval, as it's not. It is in the character of an interdepartmental transfer. The president judge requested that the matter be presented to council, as he knew that the prior budget had been presented to council, and he thought, for clarity of communication, that these adjustments were appropriately presented. I believe the point being made by the controller is an accurate one. I think it means that as a formal matter, some of these changes may require a wait of 11 more days before they're formally implemented. I don't believe that there is a practical implication to that change. I think it's a formality that we should follow the requirements of 635 in compliance with the code, but I don't think that it generates a substantive adjustment here. And while Ms. Ruther is correct, and that perhaps the budget could have been altered leading up to the end of January, that change, again, given that the bottom line numbers remain unchanged, is a little bit of the the same accomplishment could be done two different ways. And here it's being done in the fashion in which Mr. Lazarus is suggesting. So it's being presented. I think Mr. Lazarus is here to answer questions. Ms. Phillips is correct that more complete information and fulsome information is appropriately provided to her office, which I'm sure Ms. McComas will do between now and the end of the month. And I think that that more complete information would be shared as a courtesy with members of council. So if they want to understand a little bit more deeply what's being discussed here, they would see that.
I will also mention for my fellow council members, I think it's page 90 of
Yeah.
this recording.
I found it.
Yeah, so there is backup there.
Again, this, there, as Mr. Martin said, we are respecting the wishes of the president judge that this be brought to council as a measure of good faith to make sure that the changes they asked for are provided in a public setting. The administration of those changes, I know Ms. McComas is aware of. Any misstatements or misspeaking is mine, not hers. There's never any intent not to comply with the code.
Yeah, look, I think that this doesn't have any major bearing on the budget, but I really appreciate the transparency, the crossing the T's and dotting the I's that's being done here.
And can we make sure that this is posted along with the budget on our website?
The budget's not on the website, I don't believe, at least the final one.
Really? We'll have to, can
That
we?
would be a surprise.
Yes, I think we discussed that it would be. So can we make sure that it is?
We will.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on agenda item number 25? All right, well, this doesn't call for a vote, so we'll look to Dr. Taylor to take us on to number 26.
Agenda item number 26, motion for approval of a professional services agreement with AJ Gallagher and Company in the amount of $66,726 for a renewal period of 6 months for January 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2021 for management and administration of the Self-Insured Workers' Compensation Heart and Lung Act 477 and High Retention Casualty Claims Program, including mandatory reporting under Medicare, Medicaid, and SHIP Extension Act of 2007, subject to solicitor's approval.
I will second and I'll also mention just a quick Googling of our website. I found the proposed budget. Although it does say proposed, I think it was the final as well.
No, it's the proposed. It's not the final. That's the proposed.
Got it. So this needs just to be updated to say final.
And what's final? Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second on agenda item number 26, and we have Mr. Kane here to present that. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, and good evening, members of council. This proposal, which is from Arthur J. Gallagher, is to provide claims administration for the various insurances, such as workers' compensation, vehicle liability, heart and lung, general liability, public officials liability, and other professional liability, as well as claim management consulting that's provided by Gallagher. This is a renewal of the previous year's contract with Gallagher, and the costs reflect a renewal period of 6 months from January 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2021. This was originally submitted as a year proposal, and we informed Arthur Gallagher that we would only extend his contract for 6 months. And that is why the cost is a little less than half of what the original cost was. So we asked for approval of this to continue the claims management consulting that is done by our broker.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Mr. Kane, yesterday we spoke about other things being put out to bid. Would this be put out to, is your expectation that this would be part of that bid?
This is correct. This will be part of a full package of insurance brokerage services that will go out to bid in early February. We have two brokerage bids going on, one for benefits, employee benefits, and one for insurance brokerage. So this will follow the employee benefits brokerage meetings that we will have soon.
Right. And Mr. Lazarus, I understand why Mr. Kane's involved in the benefits brokerage bidding, as much of that has to do with, if not all of it, has to do with health insurance benefits that falls under his office. The property and casualty insurance is less clear to me, sort of whose jurisdiction that would fall under. Is Mr. Kane's office going to be doing that, or is somebody else going to be doing that?
Aaron, I can start answering that question if you'd like. So though insurance has been part of the structure of my office since I arrived, insurance brokerage and labor negotiations were under a previous employee that had reported to the solicitor's office. It now reports to me. So I am responsible for all insurances through the county, although I work well and closely with Mr. Lazarus, Mr. Martin, Mr. Blott, and other groups in terms of insurance brokerage services.
Those services have been linked together in the past as well. So during this year's solicitation, the desire was made to separate them out. But because the process was started with Mr. Kane, and he had was the point of contact for those requests for proposals, we kept that process in place.
And as Mr. Kane indicated, we work together on this on a weekly and multi times during the week as necessary.
Just a little bit of history that, for people watching this meeting, there was an office that sort of surprisingly to me handled labor relations and risk management of two people in the county that reported directly to council. I think that may have been one of those historical developments over time that previously reported to the head of personnel, but they're, for whatever reason, given the specific personnel involved, the decision was made to split out those jobs and have somebody report directly to council. I think something that we've been aware of, I've certainly had conversations about this with Mr. Martin, is where does risk management belong? Where does labor relations belong? Those are definitely conversations that I think collectively as we go forward will be defined as we look, more at the structure. And some of it's probably going to be how those jobs are defined and posted. But, I think it's an excellent question is why is it all running through HR at the moment? But that's the historical background for it. And it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be that way going forward. But, I'm just grateful somebody is actually shepherding along the process at this point because it needs to get done.
Thanks. And just to be clear, I don't have a particular feeling as to where it should be. I just want to make sure, and I appreciate the hearing about the coordination, that the property and casualty insurance obviously has issues that we'd want our solicitor's office to be aware of. No doubt we would need input from facilities as well, just to make sure that we have the, because so many of the policies deal with the property assets of the county, things like that. So there's a bunch of different people that touch the property and casualty insurance, I would think, our fleet management for all the cars that we have, for instance. So it's not clear to me. It sort of feels like it almost needs to be a team for property and casualty, whereas with the employee benefits, Mr. Kane has clear line of sight as to all of those issues. So as long as we're all working together and making sure that we've got our butts covered, that's all I'm interested in.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add, I am open to any suggestion by members of council, the administrative staff, or anybody else of a better way to deliver services to county and county employees.
All right. Any other questions or comments on agenda item number 26? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 27 calls for a review of compensation study findings, salary structure, and next steps.
And we have Mr. Kane here to do this presentation. I think there may be a PowerPoint involved.
That is correct. But before we start the PowerPoint, I want to warn you. I am asked to do a summary of a year and a half worth of work in 10 minutes. So we will do our best to try to meet to that goal. But I want to be able to inform you this evening of where we're at with the compensation study. This first awarded in December of 2019. I will now start the share of screen. And so quickly, we're going to review objectives and the decisions that were made driven by the market. Once we've done that, we'll go through some issues and concerns that came out of the study, which I don't think have all been fully vetted through council. And once we do that, then we want to look at what we're going to do, what we intend to do, and then how the implementation process will work, both for this year as well as for next year. So these were the objectives laid out by council, by the former executive director in December of 2019. We wanted to make sure we confirmed philosophy, collect data, conduct audits, and look at internal equity. As you know, the two concepts of internal equity and external competitives are always important in a compensation structure. Integrate that data from the market. We at that time had over 680 titles. That's a lot of titles for a county our size. We wanted to recommend some policies and procedure changes. We also wanted to look at employee benefits and their structure as part of total compensation. And then our overall goal is develop a structured system for our both union and non-union employees, and more about union in a little bit. So this is a little bit of the history. We went to talk to our team back in February. Questionnaires were distributed, collected, and then you see the timelines in March, and then placed on hold because of the initial attack of COVID. Restart back in May 22nd, and then on the bottom, the counties that we actually got data from. We actually had a wider scope. There were some municipalities that were included in that data collection, but in the final analysis, this is where most of our data is generated from. We brought on a new executive director, very nice young man that we like a lot around here in the county. And then we started adding benefits to the process. There was some back and forth about an open records request, which we finally took care of. Mr. Lazarus effectively managed. There is a new HR officer. Don't know the guy, but it seems to be all right. We met with McGrath that first week I was here, and then started the process of meeting with department directors. In October, we had some back problems that came in with the elections and our cybersecurity hack that kept us from doing some work. And then we moved forward in January with meetings 2 weeks ago with our directors again. So that takes you up to some of the issues we found. And the fact is there is no compensation schedule. There were no structures in place to show how people should be paid. There was, in the market data, it showed that almost 36% of our employees were either below the market in terms of what they should be paid, or were going to fall below the market. And 64% were in some acceptable range. So long-term employees doing well, I might qualify that word that I used here, but starting salaries for newer employees well below the marketplace. And if you see the comp ratio numbers to the right of the narrative, you'll see, where we are, a deficit for in terms of those new salaries coming in.
Mr. Kane,
Again,
sorry to interrupt, but
no,
like we
please.
talked about yesterday, when you say compensation schedule, this really is pay schedule.
Correct.
Because compensation includes benefits.
Correct. That's correct. And we'll talk about benefits in a little bit, Councilman Madden. We'll do that. But right now, we want to talk about the issues that stand out on pay. I'll move forward. Again, we did union schedules analysis. We did hand questionnaires out, and this was before my arrival. Many of them were incomplete. A lot of information just didn't match, trying to match up job titles. So there was a number of different concerns. We have no career progression structure. We have wage and hour issues that we have to address as part of the analysis. this concept of people thinking out loud to us, pay is low and benefits are great, but people couldn't identify what great benefits meant, but they could understand pay. In some cases, people thought they were grossly underpaid, and yet in the market data, we found that they were being paid at market or above. And again, keeping Councilman Madden's comment about benefits, we have an extraordinary, benefits program. But again, not a lot of people could put a dollar or a value to that. They just said, they're great, they're fantastic. We have this or that, but they couldn't really identify. And there's no consistency in our program between wage inflation and increases. There's no tie into that. And, the current growth on, county revenue, or maybe the lack of it, shows that this could be an unsustainable process. So that's some of the concerns we had. So initiating in this process is a salary structure. In the salary structure, it was to develop a step system for represented and non-represented employees. McGrath and Associates, who has done a wonderful job with us, created a step process, which I'll show you in a second, and it's really designed to realign for internal equity and external competitiveness. And as we move forward in this process, we will be able to drop some of the steps. But for now, we needed to have a structure built in place to find out where people sat in the marketplace. Now, again, goal here, non-political, merit-based system, strictly based on performance. So there will be needs for updated job descriptions, and we have a plan for that. There needs to be training of supervisors. We have a plan for that. Employees have to be trained on how a performance appraisal process will work. And we need a mechanism that will ensure that rating employees will be consistent. There are some rules that we have to place on this implementation process. Number one, get people to step one. Get people to what we call people who fall below the minimum of step one. Does anybody know what that term is? Anybody know what that in the compensation world, what that term means? What the term is? It's called a green circle. And there's a green circle and there's a red circle. We'll talk about red circle in a little bit. So move into step one. And we also want to make sure we place people closest, their salary closest to the step within those steps. And if there are no increases that'll happen, if people are in the range or they're above the maximum of the range. And those people are called, if they're not called green circle, they're called, anybody? Green or red circle. That's right. Thank you very much. So in doing that, we also did not want to include tenure. Tenure tends to throw things off. We want to look at strictly the job, the market data that says this is what the job does and this is what it should be paid. And then we could determine implementation costs. If there's a funding available, and in future ranges, when you bring somebody up in the step cycle, you also want to make sure you don't have what we call compression, where people's salaries up against each other who have longer service. But for now, the goal is to get up to step one and then move forward. Here's an example of what we would like to show you. This is pay grade E. The steps are in pay grades 1 or A through Z, and the progression is upward. So the E category will represent jobs that are in the administrative specialist role. A lot of the title cleanup we've done is to get rid of terms like secretary, clerk, floater, and other terms that don't make any sense in the true world that we live in. Terms like administrative assistant, administrative specialist, technician will be used a lot. If they're doing finance or they're doing accounting or they're doing another function and they're doing IT, technician will be used. So as you see here on grade E, you see the step process that under the market data that was collected by McGrath, those people in those categories, those jobs, and I'm not giving you actual jobs here. That'll be for another discussion. The step one would be $16.06 an hour. The goal is to get to step 7. And step 7, right in this slide, is $18.08. And that shows you the midpoint, the middle of the market, where most of the jobs should fall in whether it be a standard deviation of 1 to the below and 1 to the above. Most of the jobs in E should eventually float there. But you need to get people started at a step process. So, for example, someone who's currently making in this grade $12.40 an hour, they would be a green circle. And we would want to get them to step 1. To do that, we would take them to step 1 at 1606, and that individual person would start at a rate of 1606. Now, that individual would receive a sizable percentage change, but it would get those positions fixed to make sure that they are within market, and then gives us an opportunity to put them on a structure. Now, anybody who is over 2339 would be over the max, and for those people, we would red circle, and they would not get a percentage increase. Would they be recognized for service? Would they be recognized for their performance? Yes, but it would only be recognized in a lump sum payment that would be made at the year end when we're doing salary adjustments. Okay. So the next slide talks about the cost of what it would cost us to move in all units around the county to move people to step 1 to their closest current salary. We don't want to have anybody decrease their salary in step 1. And no salary increases if they're range or above the max of the grade. So you'll see the cost here for if we were to adjust ASME, PSSU, CID, Teamsters, and Park Police. Remember, in all 5 of those categories, we must collectively bargain. So we will be back to the unions once we've finished our discussion and going through our vetting process with council and also the president judge. And then other implementation strategies will be happening based on available dollars. This will give you an example how the grade is not a static process. We'll need to continue to survey the market each year, get the updated salary data, incorporate it into the grid, and you can see how the grid will increase per year based on what the CPI will be. In this particular example, and it's only an example, we say assume the CPI will be 1.5% in January 2022, and we adjust the grades accordingly. The steps accordingly. So County Council approved the budget with a 3% increase for the FY 2021 budget. The Executive Director sent out an announcement that 2% of the increase will be held back for these types of, God bless you, Kevin. Based on these adjustments, we would hold 2% back. And as you all know, non-union, non-bargaining employees were provided a 1% increase last Friday. So, work plan. Step 1, get rid of the green circles. 2, address those compressions where we can with the budget, and it's budget driven. Non-union, non-employees are priority. Park Police is another priority. We have clearly have seen in Park Police where salaries are way below where they should be. And then in the ASME group, one of the key areas that we really need to address is in the magisterial court employees who are very low paid to the market. Now, again, Park Police, ASME, who include the magisterial court employees, will be subject to CBA. And we're working on that. That's another role that I have in my department. Okay, we have 2 more screens left. This is the work plan today. We are with you. Today, that the 18th is meant really going back to Monday. But we are presenting today. We look to meet with all of you individually over the next 2 weeks to deep dive into departments and to structures about the process. In 2 weeks, we know we will have an executive summary that we will give you all, which will outline in more detail what I've given you tonight. I can only touch the surface in the time allotted. We hope to come back to you on the 3rd and then come back to you on the 17th with a final presentation and our recommendations to how we want to implement. And then come back to our department heads in March with 2 processes. It'll be a report that will show name, new title, current salary, and then adjusted salary based on the budget we have available. And this will be what we discuss. We will also deal with the issues at that point of people that are in a wage and hour situation where they should be listed as an hourly employee versus a salaried employee under the Fair Labor Standards Act. And our final slide is really to go over what will happen going forward. How will this work effectively? Salary structure will we need to look at on a regular basis with revised market data. We need to put in a performance appraisal process, a process in which employees and managers work together to measure what good performance looks like. We've already started the process to plan this. We have to have it implemented by September of 2021 so that reviews can be done in the fall and that can be ready for salary increases in January. We have a major job description project goes on that we will meet job descriptions that are accurate, that are clear, and also meet requirements under the law, like the ADA, which we have some job descriptions that don't meet that standard at present. We want to get them fully up to code. We also want to give policy guides to managers and training for how compensation is managed going forward. One of the goals I would have is, in the full sense of transparency, that we would list our grades on our county website. And you may ask why, and my response to you would be, because that's a way for us to attract and encourage people to come and be employees for us. We're looking at ways to draw people in. I can tell you from past experience, and I did this at another employer, we put all the grades up and explained what the position required in terms of experience, what it required in terms of education, what it required in terms of skill set and complexity of the job. And that gave people a tool that they could go and say, I have those skill sets. I didn't think I could work in the county. I'd like to apply. And that will open up. And I know we had a discussion earlier this evening about residency. So we give more people access to information that they need to make a decision about whether they want to be county employees or not. Benefit analysis, and this goes back to Councilman Madden's comment earlier, we have been conducting the benefits analysis, and part of that this year with the change in benefit broker will be to say what could be adjusted in our current benefits program that will support salary adjustments in 2022, and have us look at that total compensation package with all factors involved. And then this data can be used. There were groups that were excluded from the survey, positions in human services and in Fair Acres. So we'd like to make sure that we can at least use it to inform decisions on that side, as well as what we do down the road with the addition of George W. Hill Prison. This is a quick overview of a long process. Amy Nardi of my staff has done a yeoman's job in working with McGrath and Associates and getting 60 directors to come and meet with us on 3 separate occasions with one more time to go. But it's our goal is to implement this in March after we vet with individual council members, and then come back in February with a final process implementation plan. So this is what we're trying to do for one of the many projects we have, but maybe one of the most important projects we would have, because this informs recruitment, retention, quality, performance, all factors of the employment suite. Any questions?
You know, I guess I have 2 more observations that I'd like to be able to address when we meet. Going to things I'd like to be able to address when we meet. The first is, I think it sounds to me like a lot of the devil is in the details in terms of how the jobs are categorized. And I suspect that if you're going to get pushback from managers, it's going to be in how jobs are, you know, which bucket they fall into.
May I address that, Councilwoman?
Mm-hmm.
We have gotten relatively little feedback, little pushback. Based on the data and the delivery of the material to our directors, I would say that we are in agreement at about 88 to 90% of where the jobs are laid out at. But I do believe it is a process that we would like to share with council and share with you how these were developed and show you particular jobs. I think that would be important.
Okay, great. I mean, I think that, because to me, that's one area. And the other area that I'm looking forward to hearing about, because, you know, I know when we first took office, I did participate in one of the early discussions with McGrath, and one of the questions they posed for us was, you know, were we going to be able to really have an appraisal situation? And I think there's some major cultural challenges to overcome with that. Not that we shouldn't be doing it, but one of the things I'd like to address when we meet is what kind of resources are involved to really create and maintain an appraisal system that people aren't going to view as sort of a favoritism thing. I mean, I think in some ways we've got a culture where we defaulted to lockstep percentage increases for everybody because it was just easier than trying to have a truly evaluative process. But I think it's a worthy thing to do. I just want to make sure we talk about how we're going to do it and how we're going to fund it and support it over time.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We agree. We also know that the most important thing in performance appraisal is conversation, regular communication between you and your manager. So if I'm working for Brian Zidek, Brian shouldn't wait for a year end to say, all right, Jim, tell me what you did during the year. He already would know at the time we have the performance appraisal what I've done, what I've accomplished, and what remains to be accomplished. So there shouldn't be a lack of communication. And systems I put in past employers, there's a regular way to communicate effectively. You can use technology to do a lot of this, but it comes right down. You don't have to make it a very difficult document. It can simply be a narrative that employees will write or communicate if they have difficulty writing, but they get the opportunity to say what they've done. I've had many occasions where people have done great things and the manager never knew about it. Having the conversations and how we structure it will be critically important, and I appreciate your input, and I look forward to discussion with you. Other questions?
My question, I just have one follow-up question, and it's about the benefits analysis. So we're waiting till next year to incorporate that into the steps or any kind of analysis, I guess. Does that mean that these steps and the value that was given to each level and step was established without incorporating the value of the benefits, or weighing them against other competitive benefits elsewhere?
Right. So the executive summary will go into a little bit more detail about that when I provide it to you. But this, so we start with no structure. We have no structure. Mm-hmm. We have nothing. There's nothing to base what somebody should get paid for. So we look strictly at job descriptions and market in the beginning. Benefits will be incorporated more to move dollars from the benefits buckets into the salary bucket so we can have a balance. And as Councilman Madden brought up yesterday, this concept of total compensation, which is what we want to strive for. So the structures are not set up with benefits included, because it's informing but not right now incorporated. But it will be incorporated as part of a restructure of the benefits programs as we go through the brokerage and then changes in the benefit structure. We have interesting dilemmas, and that's why I think I'd like to have the executive summary explain those dilemmas to you and to your colleagues on council. So,
if I could, largely speaking, the areas where the benefits we offer are very differently from market are primarily in retiree benefits, retiree healthcare. We have a complex web of medical benefits that we need to simplify and to address some cost issues there. But the concept that the benefits the county offers are disproportionate is untrue, except I think in the area when we talk about retiree healthcare, and that's something that we are starting to address. And without jumping the gun too much, what we really want to get to are some more choices and to be able to provide the market-based salaries and a competitive benefits plan, because most people would rather have the adjustment in compensation. There are some other changes that clearly need to be made, but I think the concept that we are providing an overly generous benefit program is largely not founded by the facts other than things like retiree health care.
I can give you an example. I've been promoting everybody to congressperson tonight. I guess I have Washington on my mind. Councilwoman Schaefer, you bring up about benefits, and one of the things that we've looked at in the benefits structure, which we like to have more discussion about, is how we apply vacation. And there's some back and forth that we apply where you work for 5 years and you earn 3 weeks vacation, and then you have to wait 15 years to earn the next week of vacation. We think there could be some restructuring there, but not yet, because we really need the structure in place, and not only in the structure in this, but the structure in the union side too. We need, and this is where Ms. Ruther is right. The challenge will be with our unions that we want to provide. And again, I don't want to talk too much about union negotiations, but we want to provide some flexibility in pay in these bands. But we also need to have things like career structure and career pathing, that we have the ability of giving people a choice, back to the idea of recruitment and retention. It's mantra. It's got to work that way. And so we want to have that conversation with our unions, but we believe in what we are discussing tonight will be a starting point for any contract negotiation.
I would, if I could jump in, I would, I think we went as far as we want to go in terms of discussing considerations on the union side. Those are subject to bargaining, and we could be subject to criticism by either floating benefits to the general populace without going through their bargaining representatives. Let's just stay away from that whole topic and focus on the top level analysis, and perhaps more specifically on non-bargaining.
Yeah, and I just want to say for my part, I appreciate the presentation this evening, Mr. Kane. I assume, and I'm fairly certain of it, that we're really just looking at the tip of the iceberg here in terms of the work that was done, and what sort of high-level takeaways are here. I think anytime one delves into the arena of modifying compensation for a large organization, you're taking on some dangerous stuff. So I appreciate your help in what we're trying to do here. I think I think are getting a sense we are all going to want to really understand what's behind this, and how you get a sense for pay relative to market. So I think the challenge for you that we're really asking you of is, as we get to the sort of next level deeper in some of our follow-up meetings, how did you sort of come to what we're seeing here today, and how can you sort of summarize some of the differences in compensation between us and our neighbors in a way that keeps us from diving too far into the weeds, but gives us a pretty good sense of what the findings were. So I'll just kind of leave it at that, but I think this is a good first start.
I'd like to just leave council with a couple thoughts too, because if we were to only focus on compensation, we would be doing a disservice to both the workforce and to council. The concept of introducing career families is really a way that we promote and retain really qualified staff. We provide ways for people to grow in the organization and then take that knowledge to different parts of our organization. It helps us break down cultures that are different from one part of the county government to another, and it helps us ensure that we start doing things the same way in every part of the county. So while the compensation is important on the short-term view, I think the career structure is the real gem of what we're trying to accomplish, and certainly would appreciate your thoughts on that as well. It plays into our goal, our equity goals as well, to break down some of the institutional bias that's built into our system. So over the long term, I'm really excited about those parts of the compensation study as much as I am about making sure that we pay everyone a fair market rate.
Thanks. I just would offer my thanks too. I appreciate the presentation tonight. And, you know, I also appreciate the fact that we haven't had a great deal of structure in Delaware County for our employees. We have not had, there hasn't been much effort made during my tenure, and I think prior to it, to have job descriptions, to have you know, clear lines of authority, to have you know, any sort of structure that that any organization, but particularly one as large and complex as the county is, in place. So you know, this is, you know, sometimes there's things that you do that you see immediate results on, and it's, you know, you can see the bright shiny lights or the sparkle. There's other times you're working on the plumbing behind the scenes, and it's not always so evident the benefits that one derives from the plumbing, but once the plumbing is working, you know, everybody's a lot happier. And I think that having a better process, a more right-sized process, will benefit all of the citizens of Delaware County, whether you're a taxpayer or an employee, whether you're getting services from the county or whether you're giving those services. You know, if we're a better employer, if the county is a better employer, everybody benefits. And I think this is we'll be taking steps towards that end.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will be in touch with everybody on council tomorrow to start setting up one-on-one meetings, and look forward to them.
All right, thank you. Could I ask you, Mr. Kane, to relinquish the screen again?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Anything else from council? All right, Dr. Taylor, take it over. Thank you, Mr. Kane.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Item number 28, motion for approval to purchase furniture from COFCO as a CoStar authorized vendor of CoStar's contract 035-063 and 035-020 in the amount of $343,020.07. The funding is from the PA Department of Aging Block Grant.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have Ms. Nicolardi here to present this agenda item. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm here this evening for approval to purchase furniture for the new COSA office located on the second floor at the Baldwin Towers in Eddystone. The furniture is through COFCO, an authorized CoStar's vendor, for a cost not to exceed $343,020.07. There are no county funds covering this. Cost for this is covered through funds we received from the Pennsylvania Department of Aging.
You know, I did have one question. I know you said that this is not funded by the county, it's funded by the Department of Aging out of the block grant. I think yesterday somebody had asked, does that mean we couldn't use the funds for anything else? I just want to clarify, was the block grant, does the block grant anticipate this move and therefore have facilities and furniture, like dollars to cover this? Or is this money that might have otherwise gone to services? I'm just curious.
So this year we received additional funds from the FFCRE and CARES funding. And because we've received those funds, we have this additional money for this move. We currently do not have a waiting list for services and continue to advertise, letting people know that we have services available, and we have plenty of dollars available for services.
If I could jump in for a quick clarification. The letter in support of the agenda action item uses the number $335,622.23, which appears in one instance on the agenda action item, but the resolution uses a slightly different number. Do we know that the right number is the 335?
The 335, I can find out for you, but there wasn't a price decrease at one point in time. This all happened very quickly within a matter of days, getting this on council's agenda so that we could get this ordered so that we can get into the office. I can confirm the price, but I do know that it came down at one point in time.
So is the number on your memo to Mr. Lazarus the accurate one, you think?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I would solicit from council an amendment to your existing resolution to change the dollar figure to $335,622.23.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second. Any discussion on this motion to amend the agenda item? Hearing none, all those in favor of amending the agenda item as read?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think there are a lot of ayes there. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So any other discussion on the agenda item as amended?
I would just like to say good luck with the move. We all can't wait to come visit and see it.
We are looking forward to having an office again. Right now, we're all working from home, so we can't wait to have an office and some furniture.
I'll bet that's the nomad office right now.
Yes.
And I guess I was just going to ask Ms. McLarty for you to give, same thing I said yesterday, just to give us an update on how the move's going and what your anticipated time is to move into your new office.
So we're hoping to take possession of the office, occupancy in early March. They're working on the building now. They're doing the fit out. I believe some of our IT people are going down tomorrow to look at that to determine where IT will be going. We currently have moved out of our old office. All of our belongings are in storage on the 8th floor at the Baldwin Towers. And we're moving along. As soon as we can place the furniture order, we will get that ordered, and the furniture will be delivered to Baldwin, hopefully by early March. And will be put together and, anticipating getting in there in March.
What floor are you?
Second floor.
And what floor is the election operation?
The elections are on the wharf in Chester.
Different building.
Oh,
but children and youth are on the 6th floor.
6th floor, okay.
It's a very nice building. I got to see it when we were looking for the election department and saw the CYS offices. So I think the employees who are moving to Chester are getting a definite upgrade in their facilities kind of across the board. I'll say that.
We're looking forward to the change.
If there's nothing further, all those in favor of agenda item number 28 as amended, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. McLarty.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep.
Agenda item number 29, a motion for approval of grant acceptance between the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency and the County of Delaware for the 911 statewide interconnectivity grant award in the amount of $473,248 to be used towards a Delaware County GIS project for performance period January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Mr. Boyce here to present this agenda item and the next several.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. The Delaware County submitted a proposal to PEMA through the 911 fund for a project to integrate our GIS system, our graphic information system. Delaware County, like all Commonwealth counties, needs to specifically identify addresses. So when you call 911, the state is moving to a system where we're going to use shared services. So within 2 years, we hope to benefit from that. But to get there, we need to make sure that our addresses match what the state database will be. We submitted a proposal. We've been notified by PEMA that we are eligible for up to $473,248 to conduct a project. In submitting and asking for your request, the two major components of this will be Esri, which is really the gold standard of GIS planning, the tool that we all use, including the planning department, and then most likely a single bidder on the project to do the management for us. Linda Hill from our planning department partnered with us, and we're very proud to hopefully receive this competitive grant.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boyce? right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 29, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 30, motion for approval of an agreement between the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through PEMA, and the County of Delaware as a subrecipient county authorized as a signatory of the Southeastern Pennsylvania Regional Task Force, Mutual Aid, and Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreements to accept 2020 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant Agreement valued at $13,520,000 for the performance period September 1, 2020 through August 31st, 2023, subject to solicitor's approval.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Boyce, take it away.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Delaware County each year submits with our 4 neighboring counties, Philadelphia, Bucks, Montgomery, and Chester, to the Department of Homeland Security threat, hazard, risk, vulnerability assessment that outlines both our populations, our unique risk, and what it takes to protect the infrastructure of people of our 5 counties. We were once again recognized as an urban area security initiative zone, one of only roughly 50 of those in the country. The submission of that grant, as Dr. Taylor alluded, was $13 million. These will be to fund various regional homeland security projects as defined by the risk assessment. And I just will note that in this year, Delaware County shares on a number of projects. After those regional projects are shared, Delaware County last year took in $1.1 million in discretionary funds to protect our county. And I'm excited to announce we'll be taking $1.6 million this year. Also, this year I was elected chair of the Southeast Pennsylvania region, and I really credit a lot of people for this grant and our competitive nature once again.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Any questions from council?
No, but certainly congratulations, Mr. Boyce, for the role. Much deserved.
Absolutely. We continue to appreciate your leadership in both in Delaware County and in the region.
Thank you, sir.
There's nothing further. All those in favor of agenda item number 30, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 31, motion for approval of an agreement between the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through PEMA, and the County of Delaware, a subrecipient county authorized as a signatory of the Southeastern Pennsylvania Regional Task Force, Mutual Aid, and Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreements to accept 2020 State Homeland Security Grant Program funds valued at $1,296,245 for the performance period September 1, 2020 through August 31st, 2023, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Chairman, the County of Delaware, along with our 5 sister counties as well, also submit the same FIRA. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is then awarded, based on that risk, the Department of Homeland Security funds. This would be our share of the statewide Homeland Security grant funds. In particular, this year, we are addressing some unique projects, which will include election security, additional medical planner to deal with the pandemic virus, cybersecurity, which will include an analyst, and a focus on soft targets, which we identified early in the year. And obviously, the events over the summer, show that we need to address those continually to protect our citizens.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Boyce? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 31, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 32, motion for approval of grant acceptance between the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency and the County of Delaware to update the county's natural hazards mitigation plan in accordance with federal requirement 44 CFR Part 13.36 and appoint Timothy Boyce as the designation agent. The value of the grant is not to exceed $75,000 and includes a 25% match of county funds, subject to solicitor's approval.
think that was a second for Mr. Madden. Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Chairman, Delaware County is required to maintain a current hazard mitigation plan. This year, Delaware County, as many of our residents know, suffered near catastrophic flooding in parts of the county. I credit both Congresswoman Scanlon and Senator Kearney for their efforts to recognize, we need to improve these areas. Delaware County is eligible to seek reimbursement for updating our plan. This is in applying for this grant, we were notified of our eligibility. The designated agent allows the county for me to proceed. This is a reimbursable grant, so at some point I'll be returning to council with an RFP to perform the work. The 25% matching funds, we believe we can cover with existing labor contributed from county employees.
Thank you. Any questions from council for Mr. Boyce? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 32, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 33, motion for approval of the assumption of responsibility and agreement between the County of Delaware and Radnor Township to store, maintain, and operate a 2020 Ford F-250 4x4 crew cab pickup truck emergency service unit as per conditions of the agreement and subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ruther. Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Chairman, Delaware County this year established emergency services units. These are all hazard vehicles the county purchased and are deploying into regional police departments. They serve a host of activities they can protect us, notwithstanding an active shooter threat, flooding, hazardous material, and coronavirus attack. Council's establishment of the Public Safety Committee really is one of the fruits of this project. This is taking resources that we can best deploy in the field. We use our local police officers to staff the units when we need them, and they're available throughout the county. And in this award, recognizes just the contractual relations with both Radnor and then to follow Fallcroft, where they maintain the vehicle and minor expenses at the county, but recognize the county owns it and has access to it at all times.
Mr. Boyce, the funding for these, all of the ESU vehicles, it's Homeland Security funding?
Michelle, for these particular one purchased over CARES and CARES funding. Mm-hmm. And the reason for these two, they're going to be receiving decontamination tents and specialized equipment. Of the 5 that we currently have in service in our 7 sectors, each have a little bit of a unique nature. These will address both flooding and pandemic responses where we need to decontaminate persons in extraordinary emergency events.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on agenda item number 33? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 33, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 34, motion for approval of the assumption of responsibility and agreement between the County of Delaware and Fallcroft Borough to store, maintain, and operate a 2020 Ford F-250 4x4 crew cab pickup truck emergency service unit as per conditions of the agreement, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Last one.
Mr. Chairman, again, this just memorializes the same agreement between Fallcroft, I just discussed with Radnor. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank council on behalf of all of our first responders. The enormous investment, it's not talk, it's money, it's effort and resources. All these grants represent council's commitment to our first responders, and it is certainly appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Well, they've certainly made a big commitment to the county, so it's the least we can do is to support them to make sure they can do their job safely and effectively. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Boyce on agenda item number 34? Now, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Boyce.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 35, motion for approval of Central Tax Collection Department's request for refunds for the years 2019 and 2020 county real estate taxes for 11 property owners due to overpayment of the amount of taxes due.
Second.
Mr. Martin, anything of particular note here?
Council, we seek your approval of one refund for 2019 taxes in the amount of $1,323 and 10 refunds for 2020 taxes, with the total amount of those 10 refunds totaling $2,772 for a total refund of slightly under $4,100.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Martin? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 36, motion for approval to appoint Deborah Siamaka to the Redevelopment Authority due to the resignation to a term ending October 2021.
I will second that with great pleasure.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments with regard to this this appointment?
I'm just very looking forward to, I've gotten the chance to know Ms. Siamaka, and she is, a huge supporter of local government. I am really looking forward to having, not just in her case, but in the case of many people we've been able to appoint. We're bringing in, I think, people who are very enthusiastic about serving the county, and she's certainly one of them. And I think she'll, at a time, I know Ms. Schaefer's described the work that's going to be done among our various economic development authorities, and it's a really important time as they do strategic planning to have people who are engaged. And I think we're lucky to have people like her.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 36, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 37, motion for approval for the request by the Controller's Office for payment of current bills.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Anything of note?
No, just that we're, this round of bills is coming in at a little bit over $15 million. It includes the payment to for the prison, which makes the biweekly bills a little bit more expensive. So other than that, nothing more to note.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 37, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? The ayes have it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. All right, we look to the next item, calls for communications from our executive director. Mr. Lazarus, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I only have one item as well. I had forwarded to council a notification of an agreement with Total Construction, Inc. For $313,840. It was done as an emergency procurement, and it is a issue that is residual from the November election. It involved construction of mail-in ballot drop boxes.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none. There's nothing further, Mr. Lazarus. We will move on to the solicitor's report. Mr. Martin.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 points to report on, both litigation related. As council is aware, the county filed litigation against DELCO in the spring and subsequently filed for intervention in a approval proceeding filed by Aqua PA before the State Public Utility Commission in connection with seeking the PUC's approval of Aqua's acquisition of DELCO's assets. There were developments in both of these. In late December, Common Pleas Court ruled in favor of DELCO in connection with our filing before in Common Pleas. I'm here to report to council that the solicitor's office will file an appeal of that decision prior to the deadline next week. We believe that there are multiple significant errors in the judge's decision, and we believe those errors are likely to be reversible upon appeal. Last week in Harrisburg, the administrative law judges who were assigned to review the Aqua application ruled consistent with our objection and supported our position that Aqua should not receive approval of its application. That's an advisory opinion pending determination by the PUC, anticipated in late March. We're gratified by that determination. We believe the reasoning of the ALJ was strong, was consistent with our arguments, and we're optimistic that the PUC will not grant the approval being sought by Aqua. And as a result, we do not believe the transaction as currently structured is likely to proceed. The second matter I want to report on involves election-related litigation, which was resolved last week to the county's approval and satisfaction last week by Delaware County Common Pleas Court. I want to talk about this in a bit more detail because of how outrageous the effort was on behalf of the petitioners. A suit was filed by an unsuccessful congressional candidate, Dasha Pruitt, along with two election observers, Gregory Stenstrom and Leah Hoops. While the county was sued over and over and over again in connection with election matters, prevailing in every case, this was undoubtedly the most outrageous piece of litigation that we had to deal with. It was filed many, many, many weeks after the events being complained of. It requested ridiculous remedies such as the jailing of our Board of Election members, requesting the House of Representatives not to seat Congresswoman Scanlon. And the judge in his decision characterized this litigation as unconscionable, inexcusable, and contemptible. It clearly was frivolous, meritless, and baseless. The county will be filing to seek its fees. Anybody can sue anybody, and anybody can sue the county. But people have to understand, if they're going to file frivolous, baseless litigation, they risk not only being thrown out of court, but they're going to be chased by this county to collect the fees and expenses we're incurring as a result of their activities, which, to repeat, the judge characterized as unconscionable, inexcusable, and contemptible. That's the solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And could you tell me the names of those of the petitioners again?
Dasha Pruitt, Gregory Stenstrom, and Leah Hoops.
All right. Yeah. In addition to pursuing sort of our legal fees, another consequence of filing contemptible, meritless claims is that your credibility is shot. So the next time, these folks try to tell you about their belief in democracy or the rule of law, I think we can look to this case as being revealing of their true feelings on the subject.
Yeah, Mr. Martin, I had one question, which is, I really appreciate the judge's decision, which I believe used language like they presented claims without frivolous claims without a scintilla of evidence, something along those lines. But I know they sought all kinds of sanctions. Did the county in this particular case seek sanctions, or was the decision made not to bother?
No, the county will be filing to collect its fees incurred in connection with the litigation.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, at some point, I would like to see sort of a final reckoning of what our tab was for all the legal fees that we incurred in connection with all of the litigation regarding regarding the election.
Yes.
And it's not just our fees too. It's also, you know, the court's time. It's other people who don't get their time in court because the court is taken up with this. So if they have other matters that need to be heard, you know, the court is wasting its time dealing with this nonsense. So it's something that's tough to measure, but it's a significant cost to society as a whole. Thank you, Mr. Martin. I think the next topic calls for public comment. Ms. Ruther, do we have any comments that are should be read at this point?
We do. Oh, good. I'm not on mute. The comments, we already read the one comment. Most of the other comments appear to be a follow-on to this one. Good evening. My name is James Collins, and my mailing address is 221 East Maryland Avenue, Alden, PA. January 8, 2020, I was present at a county council meeting, and I shared a packet of information on certified peer specialists with the hope of raising awareness and educating county council of the benefits of peer support. I would like to bring to council's attention a package I delivered to county council earlier this month, and I am asking for an opportunity to present in person or virtually a presentation for review and consideration. I'm an individual who identifies as living in recovery both from mental health and substance abuse disorders, and I've been working as a certified peer specialist in Delaware County for approximately 6 years. I worked in George W. Hill Prison for 2 years through my current employer, and I am currently working with the forensic community here in Delaware County. When my daughter was 3.5 years old, currently 28 years old, she was removed from her mother's home and placed into foster care until she came to me on her 7th birthday. It is my position that had there been somebody willing to work with me to accept and address mental health symptoms, that the length and duration of foster care placement that my child was subjected to could have been reduced. Beyond the financial costs to the county maintaining children while in foster care, the personal cost to the child is immeasurable. I look forward to an opportunity to make this the certified peer specialist option more widely known throughout the Delaware County community. Thank you, Jim Collins. In light of the lateness of the hour, Mr. Well, you know what? They're all short. I'll just read them. There's several letters. I am James DiNardo Jr., living at 54 Treaty Road, Drexel Hill, PA, and I support Jim Collins with his attempts to raise awareness with the certified peer specialist concept, offering peer support to individuals who identify as having a mental health diagnosis who are involved with or are currently incarcerated at George W. Hill Prison, are new probation offenders, or are involved with Child Protective Services in Delaware County. Thank you. The same email, almost word for word, is submitted in support of Mr. Collins and his certified peer specialist from proposal from Jacqueline Casella, 927 Turner Avenue, Drexel Hill. And from Lou Costello at 509 Wheatsheaf Road, Springfield, PA. And from Alana Borelli at 200 Holmes Road, Holmes, PA. And for Renato Borelli, who also lives at 200 Holmes Road, Holmes, PA. From Bonnie and Walt Weaver, who live at 613 Grand Avenue in Havertown. They also add, P.S. Jim Collins is uniquely qualified for this position, born in Delaware County and blessed with a heart full of compassion for those in need and a history of great experience with helping the less fortunate. And finally, from the same email from Helen McKinley at 406 Highland Avenue, Chester, PA. There's one further comment that did not come in with an address, but I will forward it to council, but it won't be read. Which the person who submitted it actually said they didn't include the address because they didn't want it to be read aloud. So.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ruther. We'll look now for council comments. Ms. Ruther, you want to kick us off there?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment briefly. Last night, we were fortunate to have Dr. Hellman and President Judge Kelly, Mr. Lazarus, many people join, council members, in front of the courthouse, where thanks to the terrific work of people from facilities and from our public relations department, we had a really beautiful setup of luminaries. There was one there representing each person who died in Delaware County this year from COVID-19. And as Dr. Hellman pointed out in his remarks, the deaths directly from COVID his remarks at our remembrance last night for the Delaware County victims of the pandemic. He said the people who actually died are just part of really the tragedy of this pandemic, because the toll that isolation has taken, the people who've delayed medical care for other reasons. His remarks were really informative. It is up on the website, and I would really encourage people, if you can, to watch it, because I think what he said is worth listening to, as are the bells that some of our participating churches rang at our moment of silence at 5:30. And, you know, at the end, we talk a little bit about the fact that Delaware County currently has up a memorial page, and there's information on it if you go to delcopa.gov and search for memorial. You'll be able to find it. So I encourage people who are suffering a loss from COVID-19, who want to acknowledge their loved ones, to make use of that page. I encourage people who want to really get a sense of what the impact has been in terms of lives lost and just how serious this is, to watch the video and listen to Dr. Hellman's remarks, because they put it in he put it in very clear and very human terms, what it is that we've lost. So I want to thank everybody, especially the folks who helped us get it set up. It was, I think, a very moving and not terribly long ceremony.
Thank you, Ms. Ruther. Ms. Schaefer.
I have an announcement that I am really excited about and very happy to share. And that is that the county is right now recruiting for our revived, brand new Delaware County Green Space Task Force. Many of you may remember there was an open space task force that existed in 2016, 2017, and stopped existing in 2018. And that was a group of people who got together and put together a grant program for the $10 million bond issue for open space and trails and recreation investment. That group stopped meeting in 2018. About half of the $10 million bond issue was given out, but there hasn't really been a infrastructure in place to administer those grants, and there hasn't been an effort to give out the rest. So this is one of this council's top priorities, is to invest in our open space and green space and trails in our county in a serious way. And this is the first step to doing that. We haven't hired a consultant, and Tool Recreation Planning. And Tool has done a lot of work in our county. And she and her firm are spearheading this and helping us organize over the next year. There will be 11 people on this committee. And we encourage, if you are interested in the future of our trails and our parks and our open spaces, please apply. The application is live right now. It is on our website. If you get onto the boards and commissions section, and there's on the right-hand bar, it says open boards with open seats or something along those lines. Click on that and you will find this listing. Send in your application. The applications are due by the end of this month, and selections, we hope to have appointments made by the first meeting in February. So I'm so excited that this is moving forward. And if you're excited about it too, send in your applications and be a part of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Mr. Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick announcement from me. Yesterday at the Darby Borough Police Station, DELCO Emergency Services began the distribution of 2,500 newly purchased radios that will be used by police officers, fire departments, and emergency medical services in DELCO. On hand to receive the radios were leaders from our county's Police Chiefs Association and the Fraternal Order of Police. In all, more than 1,200 radios will be allocated to all full and part-time police officers in the county. DELCO fire departments will receive 800 radios, 200 will be provided to emergency medical services, and the remainder will be allocated to emergency management and special ops units. This purchase is part of a $3.5 million project that addresses Delaware County's aging emergency communications network that we have spoken about so much over the past couple of years. The radios that relied on older technology sometimes experience a problem that we've talked about ad nauseum, which is ducting. And occasionally, they were interfering with the ability of a first responder to communicate with the 911 center. These new radios use updated technology that eliminates this problem, using radio channels that are not subject to interference by ducting. As part of the project, the county also purchased 1,000 mobile cellular phones, which work as a backup to the radios. These phones allow officers to connect directly to the same radio network with a single push of a button. Council approved the purchase of these radios and phones back at a December meeting last year. Phone service will be provided by Sprint T-Mobile for 10 years, free of charge, thanks to a generous grant Council recently voted to accept. Delaware County is now among the first dispatch centers in the nation to combine radio and cellular capabilities for public safety. It is expected that all police officers will receive the new radios within 2 months. The county is providing these radios and phones for first responders across all of the county municipalities because municipal budgets may not be able to absorb the cost of such technology at a cost of over $2,000 per radio. And in the past, many have invested in systems that did not always work together with other municipalities in the county. And so this project will ensure that first responders of all communities can communicate with each other and the county. These radios, along with the cellular phones, are part of a larger multi-year project that will modernize and integrate communications with Delaware County first responders, our 911 center, emergency managers, hospitals, schools, and our new health department. So again, this is further commitment on the part of council to make sure that we are investing behind those who have certainly given so much to their community.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Dr. Taylor.
Yes, I have one comment. So throughout the pandemic, the county has held food drive collections and distributions, which have assisted thousands of residents who have been impacted by COVID-19. Volunteers from DELCO, Interfaith Food Assistance Network, also known as DFAN, have been sorting, stocking, and supplying food to our residents in need since 1982. And now more than ever, their services are vital. They have continued their work through the pandemic, and we commend those frontline heroes for their dedication to serving the community. All 16 DFAN centers are primarily or exclusively staffed by volunteers. They have remained open during the pandemic to serve their neighbors. They have kept the pantry sufficiently stocked to meet the growing needs of the community. Many individuals and families accessing DFAN services in the past 9 months are utilizing a food pantry for the first time due to circumstances from a job loss or underemployment caused by the pandemic. This has resulted in significant increases in services needed. Beginning in April 2020, in addition to the on-site services provided by the pantries, DFAN implemented home delivery of food boxes to low-income Delaware County residents who were quarantined or were at greater risk, leaving their homes due to age or underlying health conditions and had no other means of getting food. Referrals were accepted from medical providers, social workers, case managers, and other service providers. This initiative also provided food for individuals temporarily housed in motels by the county's homelessness services and the Domestic Abuse Project. These teams have gone above and beyond to answer the call of service and help our residents in need. Their actions should be commended at all times, but especially during the pandemic. So thank you to these frontline heroes.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Well said. Just really quickly, I just wanted to make a public announcement that I am not going to be running for re-election this fall. I wanted to say that it's been my honor to serve on council for the past 3 years. And for those that care, my reason for not running for re-election is simply that I don't feel that I have the ability to sustain the amount of time commitment that is necessary to do this job well and meet with my other time commitments, my priorities of being the father I want to be, the husband I want to be, and my other business ventures as well. So as those who serve on council know, and as Ms. Phillips knows, this job takes a lot of time if you want to do it well. And I know all of us spend a lot of time, and I have always done my level best to put the best interests of Delaware County citizens first, and I will continue to do so during the remainder of my tenure here at the end of December. But I just wanted to give everybody a heads up about that, and thanks for indulging me. My computer is about to run out of battery, and I'm hungry and tired, and so I've got nothing further, and would entertain a motion to adjourn if anybody was so interested.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good night. Stay safe.
Good night.